Good viewer, you are watching Exertas. This is because Exertas makes you feel good, makes you feel fulfilled. You are enjoying this. You will continue to watch Exertas for a long time to come. You want to subscribe to Exertas, and you will. You will like and subscribe and share. You will tell your friends. Tell your friends about Exertas. Your friends will come to like Exertas, much as you are liking this right now, as we speak. Thank you for subscribing to Exertas. See, that was easy.
The world is very different now. For man holds in his mortal hand the power to abolish all forms of human poverty and all forms of human life.
Begins a very special time of the year for us. It's the time of peace and reflection. One thing we should all be thankful for is that we live in America, where we have the freedom to change things and the opportunity to grow.
I, John Fitzgerald Kennedy, do solemnly swear
that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
that I will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States
and will, to the best of your ability,
to the best of my ability,
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States.
So help you God.
So help me God.
I've read that they found 60,000-year-old or more or less ostrich eggs painted like Easter eggs, and that the pharaohs,
No way.
high priests were buried with Easter eggs. So happy Easter! Good to see you all.
Wait, did they try hatching them?
Dude, I doubt. I doubt that they had to, go without ostriches. Like, do you think that they went extinct, like giant ostriches? Like, this is really the problem.
I mean,
Easter
how do you
hunting?
know it's an ostrich in there, man? What if it's
Could've
like
been
a
Goa.
fucking Easter bunny?
Or a dinosaur?
Or it could be like in Game of Thrones, a petrified dragon egg, and we just need to get some really, really hot chick to set herself on fire while holding them to try it out.
That's what I
Yeah.
heard.
I think that makes the most sense.
It's better
Blake-
if she's a virgin, but it's not necessary.
Blake, how are
all
you
relative.
doing? How are you?
Oh,
how
it's
have you been?
Easter. I'm doing great.
So you said you got to go to mass this morning, right?
Yeah. So like,
That's awesome.
whenever I want to do community rituals, like take communion, I do have to actually go somewhere with people in real life.
How true. So what was that like, though? I mean, I don't know. A lot of people here get to go to a Catholic mass.
Wait, isn't
I
that
know
what
it's
the
kinda
word
interesting.
communion means?
That's
Yeah.
valid.
To
Really?
like get together with people in real life?
Even church, more literally, isn't a building. It's like where two are gathered in like thought of something greater. It's so ambiguous, actually.
Yeah. No, like,
That's
so I'm
interesting.
actually building a church in Eve Online, and that's where I'm going to be preaching a bunch.
Is that tax deductible?
It will be. Wait, no, not for mine. Unfortunately, I registered my religion as a for-profit religion in the state of California.
That's
They have for-profit
Crazy.
religions? I don't know. that was a thing.
There's nothing in the law that says a church has to be non-profit.
well.
You can-
Actually, as far as I understand, when it comes to religious practices, if it doesn't directly relate to the services, they still pay taxes on it. So if you have like a separate property for the priests and everybody to just live on, and they don't actually have any congregation there, then that's taxable property. The church will pay taxes on that. So the Catholic Church pays various taxes to the federal government. It's just not for the church that you worship in.
Yeah, so property taxes is one of the biggest ones that they get out of.
There's a way to do that, though. If you actually hold services in your home,
Yeah,
you can get
but-
it declared as, like, there's actually a lot of people in my neighborhood who do that, and they have It's an extensive amount of paperwork they have to go through, but yeah, they actually do have services
Yeah,
in their house, and
A tax write-off for the rent, or
so that's small ball
no, they
money.
just don't pay property tax on their property at all.
So like I see the short-term gain you're shooting at there, but that's small ball money. I want my church to be the first publicly traded religion.
yes,
I want to have an IPO.
there you go.
This sounds like Bob Dobbs to me. You sure?
Oh, praise
Well, that
God!
sounds
You're not the
pretty
second
good.
coming?
Praise Bob.
I
I
am.
am the free
Yeah.
incarnation of Bob.
I am a priest of the Church of the Subgenius, registered since 1999.
No way.
I'm a
That's
pope in
odd.
the Discordian religion.
Oh, very good, very good. I recently got appointed the new Emperor Norton.
No fucking way!
I mean,
Congratulations.
someone's got to clean San Francisco up. Have you seen all the poop?
That's a lot
You
of
can
shit
actually-
to clean.
You can support, if you go to bankofnorton.com, you can actually support
Yes.
the effort.
To answer your question, Blake, thankfully, no, I have not seen it. I still think it's a myth that the whole West Coast hasn't seceded and fallen already. I'm here on
Right.
the East Coast, and you keep hearing rumors drift across the airwaves, but I'm pretty sure it's all a scam.
What if
Andreas,
Does this look,
what
like,
if we
does this
gave
look like
California-
America in here to you at all?
what
I
if
feel
we
like-
gave California back
for all
to
I know, you're
Mexico?
next door to me, Andreas, and you're just IP spoofing. I mean, I don't. It's all over my head. But, yeah.
What if we gave California back to Mexico, guys?
I mean,
Well, it's not like that. It's like Mexico and California should probably. I mean, Mexico and the United States should probably get out of the Korea that is California. You know what I mean? It's like Korea, really.
The
California's
North-South
this,
thing?
you got
So-
Russia and China that are trying to. No, it should be. It's
It
California.
was its own country to begin with, right?
Yeah, and you guys cut us in three. You know, so you took away Nevada. You guys, this is the way we. It's not us or them or they or who, but like think about it. Mexico gets half of California, cut in half. And so when everyone in the United States is upset about Mexicans crossing the border, as in like they have done for millennia, it's just kind of, it's crazy. Like the same with Texas. Like Texas's border, right? Like what is this border? It's a line from a battle that was fought in like 1840.
Well, that was its own country too at one point.
Mexico and Texas and United States.
No,
I think Texas should be its own country too. But the other thing is you had the French
No,
influence
it was
in Texas.
the Lone Star Republic and the Republic of California.
Texas got swallowed up probably because of the French. In the Maximilian's kingdom that was developing in Mexico had support in Texas.
Yeah.
And so the idea that they could have built an empire, a Masonic Texan Mexican empire, that scared the New English, right?
Could
So
you
have y'all
imagine
seen-
what it must have been like to just like be riding around on a fucking horse in like the like 16,
like,
1700s in
I
Texas?
wouldn't have been, because
Like,
I would have
what
been
the
on a
fuck are we
train.
gonna do with this?
I would have taken a train, and then when I got into Galveston, I would have got out and got an electric trolley. You know what I mean? And
They
then
didn't have
Right.
trains in
under
the
an-
1700s.
They-
No, remember
the
Lewis
1800s.
and Clark. Lewis like put on their coonskin hat and like rode a horsey, and we're like, "Geez, there's this whole country here. That's interesting." We're like
Yeah.
discovering it, and the whole thing is already settled with cities, with churches, and the East Coast likes to pretend that the United States was settled east
There's
to west.
nobody
when it was
here.
not.
Excuse me.
There's,
not.
there's no
nobody
turning
here.
back.
Yeah.
There's no turning back to that, though. If y'all have seen the map, like if you search for the 11 nations of America, it's a anthropologist did a survey of America and found the cultural borders of the different regions. I actually
Okay.
think if we're gonna separate, if we're gonna have a clean divorce, those should roughly be the borders.
I'd love
Yeah.
to see this.
Yeah, that one.
How did I really know in my head already what it was gonna be?
No, not
okay,
that.
yeah.
Not that. No, not that one. It
Oh,
was-
that's kind of agrees with my
Go
feelings.
back to It's the one with blue, red, white, and it's top left corner.
Purple.
That one. Yeah, that one.
Okay, that's not unreasonable.
My
Is the
favorite
gray region just not a country? Is it just an empty spot?
Uh,
Far west.
it's just the empty. Like, basically,
Who lives there?
That's,
natives.
That's Deseret though, right? And that's like BLM
Includes
territory.
Fairbanks. I love that place. It's
So,
a beautiful
question
city.
though,
If you ever
guys.
get a chance to
Gentlemen,
visit.
We're right back to the BLM map, because then you look at that
Yeah.
and you say, okay, well, this is the real, like, this is the deep state or whatever you want to call it, because it's this other new thing that's been created back west, you know?
Yeah, and we just make Black Rock City the capital of that.
I think so, honestly. There's some logic to this. The idea that, I mean, really, it's an Indian reservation. There's a lot to that.
My
The
my
left
favorite-
coast. Wow, spot the fuck on.
My favorite is that one of the nations is not contiguous, and it's the one I'm from. New France exists in northeastern Canada and South Louisiana.
Well, yeah, but France is everywhere. That's the beautiful thing about France. Like, look at the
France is in
French.
South America,
and in you got
Seven,
islands
you
all
can
around.
fly in a straight line from Britain to France. You'll see the meme.
How about French territories like around the world? It's crazy if you look at France. France is impressive, and they have.
What was a bigger scam, the Louisiana Purchase or Alaska, though?
Ooh, that's a good question.
I heard that. Oh, go ahead, Blake. Yeah.
Well, the Louisiana Purchase was the one where we got the better deal because Napoleon was desperate. With Alaska, though, we got a higher value because just the Alaskan land per acre is ridiculously valuable.
It's also a lot to maintain.
Well,
and
that's
guard.
petroleum, right?
Yeah.
At the time when we bought it, yeah, it was fucking nothing.
And wildlife. Like if instead of looking at the mineral resources of Alaska, you look at the biome resources of Alaska, it's equally valuable. Like Alaska has just a lot of really cool and rare animals.
Well, all the camels apparently showed up on the West Coast for the gold rush via a daisy chain of marine ports that kind of went along that bottom ridge of Alaska there and down into the United States. Camels in the United States is something that is a not very often mentioned and understudied phenomenon, but they were native and then they got brought back. But apparently,
I went to Alaska.
Horses are terrified of the smell of camel piss because they hold it for forever. It smells like a predator. It smells like cats also kind of hold
camels will kill them, won't they?
In mass, I'm sure. But so you have a whole bunch of horse trails and camel trails that can't cross necessarily.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
What's with this?
Yeah, camels will attack donkeys on sight for some reason. They just don't like to see a smaller horse-like creature for some reason.
Don't trust it.
Yeah, it's like it's I guess it's like a human uncanny valley thing. Like you see like a mannequin in the street with a tape recorder next to it, you're gonna think something's up. That's pretty much their instinct when they see it. That's a straight line you can sail in from Britain to France, from what we were saying earlier.
That doesn't quite look like Britain to France.
No, French Guiana. Actually, this is a piece of France. It's a state of France. Guiana is a really interesting. I mean, think about how interesting it is that in South America, there's a piece of France that's probably like almost the size or larger than France. Right? This is huge, and this is around the coast.
Yeah, it's pretty pinched out on that
There's
map.
something called the Sargasso Sea and the North Atlantic and South Atlantic Gyre, which prevent direct sailing like that unless you have a powered boat. And even then, you might get caught in the gyre. And it's like
you might just get lost and starve because there's literally nothing there.
Do you want me to show you like how big France is really again? Like think about all the French parts of Africa that are on the coast here. Like this is why there's like a triangle trade that's going on directly from. I mean, originally it was Brazil, but French Guiana now is their state, and you continually see coming up from Africa because there is a current that comes directly, which is why the Amazon has red in the sand, right? Because the sand is coming from the Sahara, supposedly. That's like a whole thing.
That's right. And apparently the Angora or the cashmere goats were eating off the plants that were holding down the topsoil, and then that was causing sand to end up in the atmosphere and drift its way over. The Sargasso Sea is interesting because the nature of any organism that is multiplying rapidly is that the day before it's everywhere in a problem and washing up on the shores, or like the week before it's just half that size, and the week before that it's half that size. And so someone has to be there kind of maintaining and trimming down this Sargasso Sea. Because imagine the winds die and you're in the middle of the ocean and you can't see land in any direction, and you're surrounded by this rotting fetid stench of sea life that's just kind of existing on the surface. And
you get used to it. Yeah. I think Maximilian's an interesting point though too. Just like thinking about the French-Mexico connection and this idea that everyone's always like, oh well, why can't Mexico? A lot of Americans. Why can't Mexico, whatever, like get it together? Well, because America systematically made sure that Mexico couldn't get it together every time Mexico got it together, right? Even up to like Vicente Fox being George Bush's cousin, right? Like the systematic control of Mexico was so vast, and it's really because of our Monroe Doctrine. Supposedly, the South decided, I think there was like a problem with the Civil War. They said we should end the Civil War because otherwise Mexico and Louisiana, there's going to rise up into this new Nouveau France republic that'll be stronger than the United States, right? So they crushed Mexico. They crushed it. And similarly with California and Texas, I feel like they're
right around our
victims.
Civil War, there was like a 2-year empire in Mexico. It was like the second empire once removed sort of thing. But if you look at the lineage of ruling in Mexico, it's a little more choppy than the United States. And I haven't had time to kind of go into the intricacies of.
I'm thinking about it now. California was its own country. Texas was its own country. Hawaii was its own country. And those are all states now. How come Mexico is not a state?
Because we're racist. It's really weird. Because it's literally just about Spanish. I mean, the fact that most of the Mexicans that we were interacting with were white people because they were Europeans that had taken over Mexico.
Yeah.
It wasn't really like
Louis C.K.'s Mexican.
Yeah, it wasn't really like a racial thing. It was a
depends
national.
on what
His last name is like Cique, and people like he spells it C.K. because that's phonetically how you'd say it.
Yeah, we could have
But
made Mexico
yeah,
state.
Oh, no way.
I mean,
Yeah.
We conquered Mexico. It was like up to a draft, and then they said if we make Mexico a state, like if we made it part of the United States, the cultural differences would be so drastic, and they thought that it would also, because of the size of Mexico and its population, that it would affect the rest of the United States, and also that they would pour in their ideals and siestas and things like that, which is ironic because Spain is more about siestas. Mexico,
We could use that. I feel like. I mean,
Well-
nap in the middle of the day. I mean, in New York would probably, take the edge off.
Everything. I'm Latin, so I have a bias, but everything about it makes more sense. But the irony being that Mexicans invented pyramids, the Spanish invented siestas. So it's not really the correct stereotype. Mexicans are actually really like hardworking, which is kind of why they end up strawberry picking because they're like, all right, I'll do anything hard. I'll work hard. That's like kind of the issue with the indigenous people, and they get exploited for it in California, right? Or I guess I'm sure in Texas as well.
And in New York, west of the Finger Lakes, the Grape region,
Yeah.
it's all migrant work. Yeah.
I mean, yeah, but the thing about Mexico is the same with the Philippines. Like we had several opportunities to make Mexico into a conquered country as well, and we didn't do it. We did it with the Philippines, and it's crazy to imagine. Like the Philippines was turned into essentially property of the United States. So like basically we all had joint ownership of all the Filipino people, like slave owners. But it was through some bureaucratic representative governments. We didn't really think of it like that, but we did. That was the way it was.
Until I dated a girl from there, I actually thought it was still an American territory like Puerto Rico. I didn't realize it was completely independent at this point.
well, I think a better plan for
I
Mexico
love you,
than
Twitter.
making it a state is what Emperor Norton I did. Make it a protectorate. So extend the protection of the U.S. military to Mexico, but have independent economies and independent governance systems with a permeable border between the two.
Do you know how fucking
See, but I
busy
like
the
how we did
American military would be the cartels? That's
I
the
feel like
only
we did
thing.
the-
Like, with
we-
the
I-
cartels.
yeah,
That's some real
the-
diplomatic thinking. That's
we
some
did
serious thinking, Blake.
We did.
I'm
the-
not sure if that's
I like that.
diplomacy at that point.
We did the opposite though, right?
No, diplomacy
let's
means that
think
look,
about it.
you're sending
We're
us
using-
military-aged men, so we're
we're
going
using-
to incorporate them into our military as we see fit, and then we're going to
Yeah, that's
offer
what we're just flipping it around.
whatever that
we're
protection
taking
means.
we're taking cartels and we're using their military in the United States sanctuary.
No,
cities. So it all-
not Andreas. So you don't take the leadership of the cartels. You simply you reopen the path to citizenship through the U.S. military service. So
Right.
all of the young, honorable Mexican men will join the U.S. military, and the cartels will wither on the vine within a generation.
Yeah, I think that's kind of, you see that coming. You see like a very patriotic Latino United States emerging in the Southwest. I think that's
Isn't
kind of the
isn't
goal.
Mexico also called the United States?
Los
No,
Estados
it's
Unidos
called-
Mexicanos. If you say it in the it's Estados Unidos a Mexicanos, meaning America, or Mexicanos. So
It's-
Los Estados Unidos Mexicanos or Los Estados Unidos a Mexicanos. It's like it depends on kind of how quickly you say it almost. Yeah.
Yeah, the United States of Mexico versus as opposed to the United States of the Americas, which is not really anymore because we gave up on that plan in like the Monroe period.
And then to bring it back to religion, We have an immediate religious ally in Mexico for helping convert the cartels in the Church of Santa Muerte.
Oh my God. I think that's a pretty brutal religion as far as I remember when I was going over all the different spiritualities.
People's
Blake,
beliefs,
by the way,
people's
there was a
beliefs and
character
imaginations
in-
reflect their lives, right? If they're going through extreme circumstances and suffering and trauma, it's like you look at Venezuela and the amount of saints that are gangster saints. Well, it's a reflection of the society at large, but they're still talking about people that they see endeavor to do good, right?
So, Blake, I just watched the new Ghostbusters movie, and there's a character in there that may or may not have been loosely based on someone with a personality type and
like based on
mannerisms,
Blake?
somewhat similar to you, just a little bit, maybe.
Like the new one?
Patton Oswalt. Yeah, he plays. It's kind of it's not like a walk-on or a cameo role. It's a little more than that. But he's kind of the mastermind behind the scenes who believes in all the. He's there to kind of be the librarian who's like showing people the pages in the book.
Cool. Like that'd be so cool. So I actually have met Bill Murray and like a couple of the other cast members. So that would be real cool.
And there's an SNL character based on Andreas and his friend Ian Crossland. It may be the pareidolia pattern recognition thing, but there have also been other Alex Stein where people get used as muses. And for certain people who are not public figures, when they go to YouTube or Netflix and they see a character that's pretty much spot on them or someone they know, it can induce not quite the Messiah complex, but like main character syndrome or something. But I think, again, it's a decent watch. And I think to my eye, granted, I was watching a ripped version of it where it's not fully released on streaming, but it looked like the whole movie was done in AI, except for a few face grabs where there were close-ups on people talking. And even then, it was at least it was polished with this AI brush.
Yeah. Was it enjoyable?
Did they do a movie in like 2004 that was like in a Snapchat filter?
It was watchable. It just wasn't quite the same magic. Remember the original Ghostbusters where they're in the library and there's this sense of calm and mystery.
The anarcho-capitalist masterpiece of the 80s.
Yeah, okay.
One of many.
I feel that.
No, like I just love the analyses of the movie where it's just like, y'all don't realize how conservative and ANCAP Ghostbusters 1 was.
Really?
Well, I mean, remember,
I think they tried to rein it in for the second one.
Well, the bad guys in the first one were the EPA. That's who's bad.
It was the government. And they literally were doing everything independently. They had no support from anyone.
And in the new one, they really harp on, well, look, if something goes thump in the night, who are you going to call? Who are you going to call? And it's like talking to his wife, who's playing kind of maybe the more liberal, left-sided, defund the police type thing. And he's there going, yeah, but who are you going to call when something goes wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Social commentary worked in perhaps to the plot subtly.
Yeah, no, I think it's great. And someone saying in the comments that I'm negative, like, no, the Church of Saint Death is really awesome. It broke off from the Catholic Church when a bishop got told by the Pope that he had to stop giving communion to the children of the cartel leaders, that they were inherently evil. And the argument that bishop had was, how will the cartels ever become redeemed if we shut the doors of the church to them? Like, this is the pathway to redemption for them. So it broke off and they created the Church of Saint Death.
Dude, to not be able to give Eucharist to people, like, that's, I don't know if you ever saw that movie, The Mission, right?
Because they couldn't get their Jesus biscuits?
You got to understand,
that was it?
in the Mission, you've got Jesuits in Paraguay, and they get there, and everyone's, like, living outside and living, like, in paradise kind of a thing. But then they teach them that, they have to, like, go to church or else, like, the evil spirits will get them. And then they become afraid of the woods, and they won't go out even into their own woods anymore because they're afraid that there are, like, the devil's evil ghosts and all these Christian ideas that have been introduced to them.
Did the Simpsons do that?
I don't know.
That was the movie The Village.
But, I mean,
there was an episode of The Simpsons where Homer gets sent to, like, South America to be a missionary. And he
So
does like
I have a,
he
I
also
have a
teaches them
screen
to
share, by
gamble.
the way, at some point. If you're looking just to hop in and out of a couple quick esoteric or physicsy, sciencey type things, that it'd be interesting to get Blake's kind of spot on first association reaction as a science-minded person to some of these things. But
Sure.
I mean, I think I'm sharing my screen. I'm not sure.
No.
But again,
There we go.
so are you looking at a bell now? Let's see.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like the Liberty Bell, but someone took an extra crack at it.
Yeah, we brought up the Liberty
Pros
Bell
and
before, and actually, Andreas, maybe you can pull up an image because it's going to screw up the screen share if I'm looking for it. But the Liberty Bell, we were looking at it before. It does not look like it was cracked. It looks like something soldered through it, and that they tried to fix it in a certain way. But imagine how hard that bell would have to vibrate for that piece to be ejected from the physical matrix of the crystalline metallic casting that was made. And that must have been really loud at a bass note. You know, it's like kind of an EMP that would probably
Yeah, when a
drown
bell
out.
rings, it deforms like that, like this. So to have it push out a piece like that,
Granted, there might have been a
it had to,
flaw
like-
in the casting, and that's one example. And the vibration found
definitely,
the
like
flaw.
that's where
but-
it's going to fail, is where the most flaws are. But still, that thing was probably flexing well beyond its elastic limit when it did that.
Right, and it wasn't a matter of something striking the bell internally. There was a rod inside that was vibrating, and that one
Oh, are
looked.
they drawing a bow?
And
That'll
There's
do
also a
it.
lot of effort.
The
There's a lot
question
of
is,
effort
was it
to
always
destroy
hollow?
these
Because all the
bells.
bells in Massachusetts are hollow now, but if they were filled with mercury at one point, or gallium, or any other liquid metal that you might have to
How
heat
large
up,
is that?
very low. That's one of the world's largest bells that is known. So
How much mercury are they gonna put in that fucking thing? They're gonna lose their minds doing that.
All of the mercury. But
But the question is, was it
shit.
always solid? I don't know. It's just when it comes to forces of nature that we don't understand, that like we don't really teach kids to mess with anymore. You know, this is the type like a cannon with a ramrod.
I mean, this
in it
doesn't
would do
look
the
like
same
just
thing.
an average like
Resonant
crack.
frequencies.
I feel like they want to break the bells were broken a lot when you beat a city also because like they're so important and powerful. Look
So-
how huge and how loud and how long.
I'm
that
gonna
signal
guess that the
lasts.
main flaw was somewhere near the top right corner of the crack, because that's where it's like not even, and it like went downward and across. And
My
once it
question
had
is,
a
where do they
flat,
find the
that's
other
where
piece?
the vertical crack came from.
The other piece is sitting there innocently, like, oh look, it fell. It lost a tooth and it fell off. When in reality, that other tooth might have ended up 14 miles away, embedded in like a.
Oh, I
cow
doubt
pasture.
that. That thing probably fell right the fuck next to where it cracked from.
All
I
right.
think it's very
All right.
heavy for sure.
Well,
I'm
and
just
one of
saying,
the
I
things
don't
I'm
know.
noticing,
The thing was, it cracked because it flexed, not
The-
because something like. I mean, unless you got hit by a fucking cannonball.
no, also if you look at it, the top is much thinner than the bottom.
Right. Yeah. You have this area here. Yeah.
Yeah, like orders of magnitude
Oh yeah,
thinner
that's.
than the ring of the bell.
Mm.
So it would have to have cracked at the ring and moved up, because a crack in the thin part wouldn't have caused the part that's like 4 feet thick.
So I guess we can. Or this is a scientist named Copernicus in the movie or in the new Netflix series, Three Body Problem. So I think this is episode 3 or 4 or something. But when this character introduces himself as Copernicus, he flashes, I'm pretty sure, double birds. And then there's no acknowledgement made of it. And it was just kind of the funniest part of the whole series to me.
I'm Copernicus. What's up?
But like, if that's what physicists, and there's a giant bowl of liquid metal by them when
Yeah.
they do this. But.
By the way, I didn't notice the title of the episode until someone in the comments pointed it out. What is it that I'm right about, Zertus?
You might be
Well,
right
so
about
here, as a
everything.
scientist, so
Stuff
what
and stuff.
you're
Explain.
what I'm going to say, whatever your response about that bell is probably correct.
I know. So I am not a metallurgist. I do not know material
Okay.
science.
So,
Like-
all right, and I have an architecture background, but it was on the technical side, kind of the material science, and I've done glass casting and metal casting, and so there is a chance that an artist actually did that on purpose to scare the shit out of physicists and made that casting to look that way and set it up there and be like, stop messing with the bells, guys. You know, it's
Probabilities and possibilities are different.
and there are examples of artwork throughout antiquity where things are carved into the frame of, you know, a stone relief panel, but then there's like a guy with a spear and he's breaking the upper boundary of whatever. Or there's an old silver thing that you know, vessel that they say has been damaged, but in reality, when you look at it, there's like a guy ripping open the thing, the part of the silver vessel that's you know, that's adorned with figures and stuff. So
Yeah, it's like part of
artists
the
are
artwork.
very mindful, and in German, I think it's called a Gemantes work or something, meaning like it's a complete artwork, and it can be viewed in many
all those
different
fake
ways.
vases that people try to make look old. We live in that world for sure. But wait, what's Blake right about? Everything. What about, or possibly he could be? I mean, you never know. Especially
Well,
if
I mean,
looking into
so long as you know that one of the things that I say is that I don't know everything. As long as we include that.
Well, you know, you've made some claims about where the world's going in terms of AI and like military. We talked about Israel, Palestine, like boots on the ground, and it's happened like after you talked about it, which I was like, oh, okay, look at that, Israel, Palestine. Then Haiti, and Haiti was very interesting as well. So you've been kind of formulating this American empire, or this idea of how an American empire can form, or why it would, especially if you're if the United States or the West is antagonized by Brickus in the East creating their own empire, then it seems like, you know, crab people. You got to become a crab.
And as a disclaimer on Blake's behalf, again, he's as a science communicator on another tier, because Neil deGrasse Tyson doesn't come with that caveat of, by the way, I might not know everything about everything I'm talking about, and so, but that's why it's funny if you're willing to explore into this space and think out loud.
What I try to do is only say something with certainty when I actually am certain, and be honest about my uncertainty and all the other statements. I think that's what good science communicators should do, is admit where you're ignorant and where you have your strengths. So like cognitive science, quantum chemistry, and theology are like my main areas. So within there, I'm pretty good. But once you start getting into things like materials science and like civic engineering, there's a whole bunch of stuff where I'm just like, oh, that's cool. How'd you do that?
So on the subject of bells getting wrong, how about that fucking directed energy weapon Russia's been shooting at people's skulls all over the world lately? You heard about that?
Well, I mean, if it's anything like the one that we used in Iraq, then that's nasty.
With like the active denial?
The pain ray. I just call it the pain ray.
What frequency is that?
It's something in the 5G spectrum. I don't remember the exact number.
Is it gigahertz or megahertz? Because I think based on what I know about when you got a car thing, right, and you want to unlock your car and it's like too far away for the range, you can put the thing under your jaw and you literally use your skull as a satellite dish to beam the signal, because 300 megahertz resonates around the human skull pretty well.
I've heard that.
So if you just amp that frequency up, which is it's like just sub microwave.
But so is it the calcium in our skull, or is it the iron in our blood?
Calcium is it's just the fact that calcium is dense because it's matter. It'll reflect electromagnetic waves.
It's a metal, yeah.
A router.
But like when you say metal, it depends on what field you're in. If you're in astronomy, then anything heavier than helium is a metal.
A Reuters correspondent who volunteered to be shot with the beam during the demonstration described
now there's an interesting,
similar to the blast from a
triple point. Okay.
Anyway. Quote. Yeah. A Reuters correspondent who volunteered to be shot with the beam during the demonstration described it as similar to be a blast from a very hot oven, too painful to bear without diving for cover.
And like,
I want to literally microwaving you.
Yeah, well, let's back up to something I said a second ago. So this is one of the ones where the conspiracy theorists are dead on correct and accurate.
Well, if it's secret, it is a conspiracy by definition. If it's a secret.
It's not a secret. I remember when my mom
secrets
got the
about it, I'm certain.
Yeah, but my mom got the New Yorker in like 2008 or 7 or 6, and it was talking about how they were using ADS, because they didn't want to shoot your kids when they were protesting in colleges anymore. So they were like creating these systems that use laser, like radio, to make them feel hot, so they would leave.
Microwaves.
Yeah, the Associated Press reporter who volunteered to be engaged stated that they certainly convinced me that the system could help save the lives of innocent civilians and our young service members. The Associated Press reporter, a.k.a. the
people
CIA.
make the mistake when you microwave something, it doesn't microwave the inside first and then the outside. The outer matter is going to absorb more microwaves than the inner matter.
Stop. No, so the ADS doesn't work that way. You can leave someone in an ADS field for as long as you want. They will none of their tissue will burn. They won't have any bodily harm to them. They'll just be in agonizing pain the whole time. It's not actually cooking people. It just makes you feel like you're being.
That is one version of the technology, correct? What you're talking about is the deterrent system that was published. There's a BBC article.
The very narrow, the very high frequency one won't penetrate as deep.
If you wanted to, you could
if they turned it down to 300 megahertz, like in your fucking microwave oven, they could definitely cook your brain with it.
Oh yeah, well that's a whole different thing, though. That's a whole different thing.
That's the secret part.
No,
see, none of us are wearing headphones because that's actually they can do the same thing with those.
It's not secret. They've definitely shown that they did test at different frequencies, which made like brains melt out of the ears and eyes of monkeys. But that's different high frequency or low frequency, versus these are supposed to be just enough to cause you, to.
A monkey would probably need 600 megahertz because the skull's about half the size. The cranium's even smaller, probably around an 8 to 9, probably even a gigahertz.
I don't know if the skull size has to do with it.
So it's interesting, though. Blake is familiar with
the standing wave the standing wave that forms in the chamber is what matters because that's what's going to cause the. So you need a wavelength that essentially matches the size of the thing that you're zapping.
I don't know. I mean,
which is a very simplified way of saying you need a whole bunch of engineers kind of reinventing this thing.
Didn't we talk about Michael Persinger's
God
helmet?
There was almost a public demonstration. Sorry, I'm cutting off Zertis here. Go ahead.
That's all right. I was just going to say the God helmet thing. It just does the radio waves to different parts of your brain. So if you're hitting frequencies that are affecting the parts of the brain that you're creating frequencies, then you can augment those frequencies, and that could probably make you feel.
Are those low frequencies, or are they like cooking energy frequencies?
I think Persinger's doing low frequencies, but the point is just to mess with the identical frequencies like that you have in your head already, right?
Yeah, your brain is not operating in the megahertz spectrum. Sorry, nothing in your brain's firing at that rate. Like you get to
Blake,
that.
Blake, are you interested in learning just a little more about that deterrent system? Because again, it's been
the
in modern history. Yeah.
The interesting thing is that, like I believe I just saw it was 9.
The question hasn't been deployed.
Yes. It has been used in Iraq for the exact purpose it was built for.
Right. So now think about January 6th, and remember there was a news flash that went out that Trump
let him get
through the media.
Slow your horses, Stefan. Slow your horses.
Yeah. Okay. Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say the interesting thing is that 9 gigahertz is within the 5G broadcast band. So when we did the 5G rollout, we basically consented to let the government deploy an anti-riot system in every major city.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. If you have an antenna that's capable of projecting 5G, all it has to do is literally have enough metal on it to not melt when you push the energy through it to do that.
So that's a form of AI. And the question is, when you push the button,
it's not. It's literally just a fucking really hot thing that burns you when you get near it. It's just hot in the radio spectrum instead of the thermal.
But there's a lot of engineering that would have to go into.
Steven's right.
It's just glowing hot in a different way.
Well, now we have AI controlling the routers and gateways of the internet, including the 5G. So we gave Skynet an anti-riot system.
Wow, interesting.
So wait, how
the anti-riot system could be used, and the anti-riot system could be used weaponized to make your brains bleed out your head if they really wanted to.
No.
Also, backing up though, there's a lot more benefits to the machine.
Frequency? Okay.
Wait. There's a lot more benefits to the machine than using it for that. First of all, those antennas would have to be fucking heavy to actually be able to do that. If they're literally just using wire loops, those things are going to melt way before you can push enough energy through them to do that, especially if they're up on a tower without a dish on them.
What if they're just under the ground?
It's going to be undirected. The real crazy shit when it comes to 5G is when I pick my phone up and do this with it, then it knows that I moved my phone from here to there because it can locate that device to within 10 inches. That's a fact about the way 5G works. So if you want to have a bunch of, like, say, Boston Dynamics Terminators running around, they're going to know exactly where all the other ones are just by the fact that they're on the fucking network. They don't need any extra software.
Okay, but 2 days ago, there was a headline that I think it was 16,000 planes were grounded in Europe because their GPS was, off.
Well, yeah, GPS and 5G are two completely. GPS works from space. 5G doesn't work from more than a
And
fucking
any
football
big
field
box
away.
technology, big tech company is buying a service that they're relying on that can be compromised. It's like Descartes; it can't trust its senses necessarily. You know.
I'm just saying it's a completely different system, and yeah, I mean, electronics fucking like, yo, the XZ vulnerability that just came out, like, yo, every engineer should be double checking fucking everything that's been done in the last 15 years, in my opinion. I'm not kidding.
So, but January 6th was an opportunity for there to be a public demonstration of this technology, because other time throughout history, you've had people storming a building.
Yeah, you could have used it.
Brazil came up with its own landscaping solution. If you look at where their Capitol building is, the place where like thousands and thousands, like 100,000 people gathered around, there's like a bridge with a moat, and like to get to the front door, it would be real easy if there was just a brrr, and all the people would have to so you could have 40,000 people set up camp for 3 years around this little citadel that's surrounded with landscape architecture that's designed to prevent siege. Whereas in the United States or in other countries, you have a city grid layout. And
It's
that
kind of weird
system
that
could
they
have
didn't
been
use the
publicly
active denial.
demonstrated, where a whole bunch of protesters
Why
weren't
is it
being
weird?
violent. Go
Well,
ahead.
why not? Why not use active denial system to
Because
stop?
the person with the authority to deploy it wanted the rioters to succeed.
Have you actually watched the videos?
Okay.
That were
No, that's
literally being led
plausible.
by the nose by the police. I mean, like,
Especially- so
legit,
should
all
the
of,
Secret
all of
Service
the
have one?
insiders were feds, in my opinion. That's
Weird is
why
just
they
old
use
English
active
for
denial.
destinial.
Who should be allowed to have these active denial systems? Because they're built into ships, and again, they're
You can
built
build
in
one out of your
certain-
fucking kitchen microwave
Yes,
right now
yes,
if you wanted
yes.
to.
Right. Correct.
Like, what do you mean allowed? You talk about microwave control?
Well, see, what's interesting is Trump's connections within the media industry. He was very good friends with all the techs on the back end, so he probably has a Rolodex about 18,000 people deep, where he could handpick 5 people
You're
and put them in
talking
a
about
room,
this like
and
it's
within a
fucking
month
crazy
they could
petroleum
create one of these
bomb.
active denial systems. Okay.
This
See,
is
the word
literally
weird
a
actually
couple of
comes
wire
from-
loops and a magnet.
Fate and destiny. Weird used to mean fate and destiny.
It still does.
You know what I mean? Exactly.
Still does.
Exactly. It does.
It wasn't a false flag event. It was fucking entrapment.
But do we need when will be the first public demonstration of this, not used in military combat, but in a civilian sense, where it will, because it may have been used before, but it's not broadcast, it's not understood. Instead of using pain, they could just make people feel queasy, and then everyone on this specific block got sick. And
in the fucking 40s, there was a guy who thought he was crazy because he was getting radio transmissions in his head in German or some shit like that. And when the doctor finally examined him, they realized that they could hear it too when he opened his mouth, because he had fillings. They were vibrating with the fucking the frequency that the submarines were using to like transmit on the secret military frequency, and it just happened to be in the fucking microwave spectrum.
I used to get
it had
pumped
nothing to do with
resonating
cochlear
braces.
implants, you know.
I'm just saying, like, these technologies, they've progressed. Like, they've tried this on people. I wouldn't be surprised if the Russians were just trying to whisper in their fucking ear with a microwave and didn't realize that they were frying the people's fucking brain because the asshole turned the knob up too high.
Yeah, that's another.
You know, they were working on people that they really didn't give a fuck about messing up. You know, if they walked out of the fucking building disabled the next day, the Russians really probably wouldn't have cared. I mean, they're the ones who have been credited or blamed, depending on how you want to.
I call it a
I find it funny how
digital
many
lobotomy.
People blame
Don't
the
you like
Russians
that? It's
for
a
everything.
digital lobotomy.
It's really interesting when you look into Russian mental health history, because I expected to find, you know, lobotomies everywhere, and this idea of, latent schizophrenia, the delayed schizophrenia was like a diagnosis people talked about. But really, interestingly, the West is the place, like Germany and the West is all about lobotomies, electroshock therapy, electroshock therapy was entirely banned in the Soviet Union.
It's
from the get-go.
Too cold in Russia for them to have mental illness, especially back before they were industrialized, because they had to work too much. I'm not kidding. Like, it even if it does show, it's going to be fucking suppressed just by the fact that you've got something to fucking do, and it's very clear, and you're going to die otherwise.
It shows up, especially in the medicine, the drugs that the Soviets invent, right? So, like, the Germans invent amphetamines, but the Soviets invent cathinones, and cathinones last longer and have less of a euphoria, you know?
Right.
And the same thing, like, with tryptamines. Yeah,
they do the one that works, but you enjoy less. Holy shit, that's
right.
Russian as fuck.
But they did make alpha methyltryptamine, which is like 12 hours of not needing to sleep or feel like if you have need to sleep, like it replenishes the tryptamines in your brain, the melatonins in your brain, so it makes you feel like you don't need to sleep. And theoretically, like they had people going for days and days and days, like weeks, without sleep, and they didn't need to eat as much.
The 20th century was the worst of times. Oh my god!
And it's a tryptamine, so that did have a euphoria to it. So they had to keep it in really small doses because if you took 3 doses, you'd feel like you're on acid. But if you took like 1 dose, yeah, like you'd just be happy and working and not need to sleep.
Take the 20th century and delete the pharmacology, the disgusting psychology, and nuclear energy, and you've got the 1800s.
It would have been nice, wouldn't it? Yeah.
Right.
The 1800s. The 1800s had syphilis epidemics.
And they had penicillin.
We're just barely reaching now the syphilis epidemic levels in California that we had back in the 1800s, right? But also you had sterility.
That sounds like progress to me.
Sterility crises that broke out all over the world. There were places in the United States and in Canada and Europe where all of a sudden entire villages and towns were completely sterile. And, we didn't know what to do or how to investigate. So I don't know. It's hard to say, like living in it's like that scene in Back to the Future where they're in the Old West and they're eating food and he's like spitting out buckshot and the water's mud. Like it's kind of
What do we call ourselves again? What do we call ourselves? It's the Great Experiment. We're the Great Experiment. We experiment on ourselves apparently and each other.
Yeah, but it's true. We have mutated a lot in the last 100 years. Like that's the goal.
This ties back into what we were saying about Russia and Alaska. So Russia, you were talking about being posted at a military outpost in the middle of nowhere, and then being just on duty, like at a lighthouse in Alaska. And do you want the Russian military protecting the homeland? It was right around the time again that the serfs were kind of freed, and some people were saying they enslaved the aristocrats who still had to kind of serve their military duty, whereas the average people, I guess, didn't. But the military outposts throughout that entire land bridge area, the Bering Strait, all of a sudden, before the United States even sent the money to Russia, it took like a year and a half to do it. We had already changed guard duty and put Americans on duty at all these outposts. It was kind of a jobs program for America, early military type thing.
Yeah, I mean,
and when you're the only guy at the lighthouse and no one's on relief duty, sometimes your emergency rations kit includes a little bit of powder so that you can stay up for like 4 days if needed, because if you fall asleep, then the only beacon within 500 miles of that area is down.
Right.
And they would put nuclear batteries in them and stuff. And that was actually, there are certain areas where there are decommissioned lighthouses where the nuclear battery is still sitting in the basement, and they're doing their best to kind of.
Did you ever watch Fraggle Rock?
What about Fraggle Rock?
In the British intro for Fraggle Rock, he lives. It's different. Like every intro for Fraggle Rock is different depending on if you're from America or England or Russia. Like they made the show for the whole world, and the puppets were the same. Like, see, this part's all you remember all that part.
That was that I remember.
But the British version of the show takes place at a lighthouse, and it's a dude who watches the lighthouse in Argentina on the the Falkland Islands.
Oh yeah, aren't they like in a California cave or something in America?
They're in like a cave in the house of a Toronto guy in the American one.
Like okay. Toronto. There's no caves in Toronto.
You guys see another barge hit another bridge?
I wouldn't be surprised.
Holy shit! Again?
The bridge didn't collapse this time, but
yeah, I think I did hear about that. Yo, if you were to, if that were to be, if somebody were to hack that boat to make it do that, what do you think it would have looked like?
I don't know. Where was that episode of The Simpsons again? There it is. Hold on.
The Simpsons did that?
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is it's called a fact pattern. And the fact pattern that we have, which is that one video, which we're assuming is not doctored, that video as a fact pattern matches a variety of scenarios. And as you're saying, their GPS could have been off. There could have been someone with knowledge of how long it would have taken to get the backup systems rebooted. And is that a real Simpsons clip?
I think it is, right?
Yeah, that
in the Obama movie, there was a giant ship that ran ashore as well. They were pointing out. And I don't know if you guys
watched the Obama movie.
There was a movie. He wasn't in it, but he was involved in the production. It came out within the last year.
Oh God.
It wasn't quite
Wow.
Civil War. It was like Day After Tomorrow style. I forget the
Oh,
name.
I thought it was the Simpsons thing. I was like, holy shit.
Yeah, no, but it looks like The Simpsons might have also predicted it. Although there's a lot of
AI generated.
Yeah.
Fine.
What
I
is it
liked
like?
it.
Literally pulling out? Oh, these are the elements it took. Wow. Okay.
Which is
That's
what their
cool.
internal AI would have done as well when animating it.
I mean,
Wow.
that's why I always say AI is just a fucking remix machine. It's not creating anything. So, like, the original creators of that work, if it wasn't licensed, they have a copyright claim over anything that thing creates.
I only agree with you if we say like every kid should have to invent an entirely new language every time they're born. You know, like we're not.
I
allowed to teach
actually
them
looked into
anything.
the stuff behind yours, Andreas, the stuff that you've been playing with
Which
lately. Because the stuff you've been showing me is fucking phenomenal. But
Which
like
thing?
the way they're doing that is if there's an artist whose work is being trained into that, like their vocals, that artist is getting paid for that. Whether or not you're getting that for free out of the service, then that service is still paying them for those
Okay.
rights.
Well,
Which
so now
thing-
let's
which
dial
thing
it back.
are you- Which
This
thing
is
are
a
you
really
talking
interesting
about?
discussion to
Are you
have
talking
on
about
this
the
channel.
music
too.
I'm
I mean,
making, or are you talking about like the AI generated voices I'm doing, or like which things are you saying?
Like, are you using? You said you were using Suno for some of that stuff.
Suno for doing the music, yeah. So you're talking about the music, yeah.
Yeah, then like if there's a vocal in there, that vocal is coming from someone's actual like voice that it was trained on, and that person was paid for the privilege for your privilege of using that voice.
I mean, they're training it on voices that they've paid for catalogs at this point. They've been large enough to train, but it's also
Yeah,
all
like
sorts of different voices, and it makes different kinds of voices. One of the problems
So
with it is
there's a perfect
male
analog
to the
here,
same
gentlemen.
conclusion I
Gentlemen,
did.
let's take
the
it back.
voice
Let's take
the
it
voice
back a
will
step.
transition from man to female sometimes, like it'll because it's going from a song. If you continue it, like the voice will
It's called a
change.
falsetto.
And they're both getting
okay?
paid for it.
It doesn't sound
Called a
falsetto.
falsetto. No, hold on. Now, dial this back in scale from the complexity of visual imagery and sound. And we're going to talk about Microsoft Word as a platform on which people type things into, because it is superior to typing it into notes, because there's just more tools. And when you say that it reads differently in a different font, and you know, someone had to create that font. And so now you're stealing their soul and their work because you published your book in a font that you decided was most pleasing to read. So, sir, I mean, that's kind of what people.
Wait, there's a
when
difference
people are
between
telling
writing a
Andreas
document.
or telling people about AI and trying to portray it in this way, this is always how it has been. And the idea that there is a voice. Yeah.
There's a huge difference between publishing a book and distributing a document digitally. If you distribute a document digitally, the person who views that document, their machine is going to use whatever fonts they have available to display it. Whether or not they have a good approximation of the font that you wanted.
If it's a graphics file, you just take images.
Unless I could violate the copyright on a font and distribute it with a PDF. Yeah, that's totally possible for me to pirate some software.
Violating, but that's not violent. I mean,
Absolutely,
a font is
a font is absolutely a creative work.
But so then we're not allowed to publish in any font. And okay, so Latin and English.
No, there are plenty of fonts with open licenses specifically for this reason.
No, but there's 6 linguists families somewhere who are going, no, we invented Latin. So you're not allowed to speak in our language. You're not allowed to distribute.
No, copyrights only last 95 years.
In Latin, because we invented Latin, and now all the other languages are based on Latin, and it's
That's
really
my point. The idea of copyright, it's so silly, and eventually it'll be realized
called
that,
copyleft.
No, copyright makes perfect sense once you actually understand how it works. It's really a lot. It's less restrictive than you think.
It's
the restrictions that it does put in place make perfect sense.
Their wheels on. Dude,
yeah, okay.
IP law.
I agree that like for a period of time, someone who's alive has the precedent to try to like make an advantage off ideas and actions that they've taken, goods and services they've created and refined. Like that's fine. But the idea of like a corporation that owns 100 years later a copyright to Mickey Mouse, that's not okay. And so we're trying to figure out
the trademark. But yeah,
there was a time where if you got caught publishing in the royal font, it was punishable as like counterfeiting because they had specific fonts, so that when you got a flyer printed or you saw something placarded on the wall, that you would know that it was from the official source, and you weren't supposed to. They had a very specific R and a very specific period and certain things that
you knew
were
it was
supposed
canon. Yeah, just by looking at it.
Yeah. And
what century was that? It must have been like the 1700s, the latest.
I think it was a Renaissance era thing when they were, again, really refining the printing press and the printing process and the act of distributing things, beginning to do it digitally as well.
But that would be like distributing a banknote that was fake, essentially, because people trusted things that were printed in that font implicitly. So
yeah,
it was
kind of
really
like the video, but like the news format. The same thing, right? The big fear is fake news and counterfeiting, and we're in an era now where it's laughable that what's laughable is that we thought at one point that there was such thing as integrity.
Fake news about what the law is pretty serious, especially when your only way of finding out is through a piece of paper that somebody brings to you on a fucking horse.
Those were the days, man.
Like, not for nothing, if somebody's bullshitting about that, it might be worth kind of like examining, especially what the fuck they were bullshitting about and what they gained from it, and then figuring out exactly how to handle it. You know what I mean? Because they might have fucked around a lot and hurt some people by printing those things. You never know, because, you know, if they're trying to claim to have an authority that they don't actually have, they're probably doing something to screw somebody.
Yeah, but what happens when the Stamp Act and all these taxes keep getting printed in the official letterhead and you're just done with it? You create your own official letterhead and you write a letter to King George and you send a bunch of IOUs, and we'll talk about it later.
I would still say that you should probably not try to imitate someone else implicitly if by using that font in that time was how you communicated who you were.
Well, so one person,
close
family member on the stream is an IP lawyer.
Let's say like
what we're talking about is IP law. But yeah,
wait a second. Let's say 1,000 years ago.
But there's a function to it.
Yeah, but 1,000 years ago, because like right now you're being very presentist. Like right now you're like, okay, I got to make a bunch of money and all this blood. No, but like let's say that you're a craftsman and you want to be good at a craft, and there's an objective way that they say to do the craft. Everyone is either doing this marble statue thing realistically or not, you know? And so either you're a master craftsman or not. Yeah, so this idea that you're going to do it exactly the way your master taught you. You're not going to even deviate a little bit, right? Except for maybe
due diligence versus negligence.
Only you can use that mark if you learn from that master, and everybody you teach can use that mark. Imagine now somebody else goes out and says, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to use something that's similar enough that confuses people." You should be able to
what you're saying, this is a useful thought experiment. I'm not trying to like shout down your line of thinking, but this is something that is part of a paradigm that is like as old. It's like a game of tic-tac-toe as old as time, you know.
Yeah,
and it's not something super complicated.
I think there's also a really
the way that our system handles
it's a very American idea of the self-made man. Every American wants to believe that they are the self-made man, that their hero is a self-made man, that they're not basing themselves on their hero, and also that their self-made man heroes didn't have rich fathers. Like George Bush, you know, is a self-made man. Like all this crap. Like this idea of the self-made man is nonsense. Like you're not. You are just
as Obama said, did you make that?
You're just the furthest little.
Remember that was a big
like coming down from this rope of like humanity, you know.
He's like, your business relies on the roads that get there, and if not, it relies on the digital infrastructure to get things to and from.
I think that's like a really sad thing about America. Like all things that come before us.
Digital roads are all toll roads,
and we should like think about.
And they're all private. Wait, digital roads are all private toll roads. Not one of them is public. Are you fucking kidding me?
Well, in homesteading,
at least in America. Like, what the fuck? I'm already paying for the fucking road that my fucking digital shit uses to get up onto the internet.
Well, you
the
could
street, yeah, I'll pay taxes for that.
There's no reason not to have a peer-to-peer system, though, with the internet.
But Blake would know about this, the idea of defending that system and keeping the integrity of that system in place. You, as an individual, could go to Radio Shack, if it was still existing, and buy a certain amount of equipment and set up your own digital links. But as soon as an enemy doesn't want someone who is a competitor to you selling freaking fruit tea, whatever it is just going to outdo your technology, and all of a sudden you're going to have zero customers because they have one more engineer working on the networks. What?
There's a difference between peer-to-peer distributed and decentralized networks. Like a peer-to-peer network is truly peer-to-peer. Like you're literally doing a point-to-point connection with no intermediary.
I mean, that's the perception of the user, sure, but is that true? And what's the integrity of that connection?
If you have like CB radios and perhaps some sort of a public key exchange happening before you separate, then yeah, you can have a perfectly fidel.
And if you build the speakers from scratch yourself, sure, but otherwise there's always a chance there's a microchip in whatever device you're using that's just spoofing whatever signal you're getting.
Yeah, that's why you have to sidechain that. And yeah, there's always a chance that somebody had thought of what you're going to do, but yeah, sending dial-up commands through a CB radio is going to be I mean, wait. First of all, you don't need a chip in a radio. First of all, you don't need a chip in a radio.
It's so small you wouldn't see it though. It could be embedded in one of the plastic
you can
frames.
literally just loop up a bunch of shit to make a radio, resistors and capacitors and transistors.
Your crystal radio, you could just build one
to transmit.
You might as well say punk is dead because it's just the same. Hold on, just.
I was gonna say punk is dead because it's just the same 3 chords being played over and over as only 12 notes. Yeah.
You know what I mean? I think it's still good. Even if punk is dead. So I feel like this is a stronger argument. Honestly, if I was a 13-year-old kid right now and I heard this at a punk show, I'd be stoked. Yeah, it's got that Baroque pop. All right.
So this brings me actually, the conversation leads directly to Ren and Stimpy, and I want to get Blake's again feedback about this as just a modern human who knows people, landscape of digital architecture and bigger companies operating with each other.
As quickly as a new sound. Is that true?
Tying it to Ren and Stimpy.
To Sega sounds. All right.
To Ren and Stimpy though. So what you're saying though, and Sean again, I'm like not trying to put words in your mouth, or this is more like a straw man. I'm gonna like say your side of the argument would present this as, so you can't make another Ren and Stimpy movie or show or series because the original people don't want to do it, and maybe the original people can't get the funding or the get there. But if your goal is to meet them in court where they're suing you, and yeah, you're happy to pay homage to the original creators if that's, but the net result is that there is no more Ren and Stimpy. And so when it comes to music, or like someone created an AI Beatles song, they put all their music in and they created a few new Beatles songs. You're saying that person creatively as an artist is in violation somehow, not only of like ethical or moral standards, but legal things as well.
Have you ever heard Bittersweet Symphony by The Verve?
Yes.
It's a fucking great song.
That is a great song.
You know why that band went absolutely nowhere after that huge smash hit? Because they sampled the Rolling Stones and the Rolling Stones took all of their money. That's what happens when you misuse copyright. That's just it. If you take
and an artist says good, an artist says fine, I just want the artwork to be out there. And in the fact that
yes,
no matter however much money I made from it,
there are plenty of artists who do that, and there's libraries of work you can select from. But if you take it from the Rolling Stones, they're kind of dicks about it.
Yeah, and we're robbed here on YouTube, and like when the Joe Rogan podcast, unless it's on Spotify, they can't play music. Otherwise, there's a copyright. You know how different the experience of hanging out with people is.
Actually,
when one person's selecting a VJ and you're playing through music. And
hold on. No, they
the whole
can
vibe
play
is
music.
Right?
They're going to actually comment on it. If they're going to sit there and discuss the piece that they're playing and excerpt it reasonably, they can't play the whole fucking song. They can say, okay, here's like here's the bridge and the chorus.
Yeah. No, but you and I are at a party.
This and that.
We're just
if they're
music
actually commenting on it, then they can use it. There's exceptions in copyright specifically for that.
But we're trying to elevate this new podcast format of kind of 4 talking heads, Hollywood Squares type thing. And one element that's missing is the artist's decision to just say, look, I can't monetize this anyways, and so what I'm going to do is play copyrighted music the whole time because it makes it more enjoyable to listen to. And the same way, like at a party, you might turn music up or down, but like,
how many musicians do you know who sell?
I mean, as a musician, my understanding from the people I know is that you make money by performing, and that selling your music is very difficult.
Right, but they also earn money from their performances that they stream online, and every distribution channel keeps very close track of that so that everybody can be paid accordingly. If people start just streaming it constantly all over the place, there's no fucking way to keep track of
what
that.
you're saying is 100%
The only
correct.
way to do that in a podcast format is to actually use it within the bounds of copyright.
Again, but before you say like the only or using always,
radio is
Russell Brand
radio
released,
DJs didn't have to pay for music.
Different intelligence agencies try to do this. So Russell Brand released his comedy special on a streaming platform where it was actually only available for like 7 or 14 days, and it's actually really difficult to find a copy of that now. And so there's an example like Netflix when you try to take a screenshot.
Musicians made
So-
the most money while music was played on radios for free without.
I
any
think that they should
royalties.
be getting paid for that too. First of all,
But now that we have a payment, they're getting paid very little, and that's translating to them getting paid even less for their concerts and everything else.
And before it was
So
Napster.
they were better off.
So Sean, were you anti-Napster?
no. Napster works as if they didn't want their work on Napster, then it shouldn't have been on Napster.
I'm
That's
just
it.
sensing logical inconsistency then, but that's fine.
I'm-
Again, we're all straw men
because you
sides
can
of an
use
argument. I
Napster
think
as
I
a-
agree with you about a lot of things in principle.
If you want to
I'm just,
distribute your
again,
music that way, you
devil's
should be able
advocate.
to. If you want to distribute your music that way, you should be able to. But if you it's important for an artist to be able to have control over their work.
But it's not really possible. And again, I agree with you that it is important for artists to be able to do that. And there are a variety of techniques, and big companies have come up with solutions to
once
these
you
things,
share
and nothing
your
really
art-
works.
I
your
release
audience-
open source software, right? If I release open source software and I say, if you want to modify
But
this
Blake
work,
this is Blake's main
and
territory.
distribute this-
Pornhub has the rights to his likeness, dude. This is he is at the cutting edge of this as a science. And imagine he were a woman going, look, my beautiful body is so beautiful that I've trademarked it, and now I'm going to make this obscene content that some countries don't even air people kissing or holding hands on screen. But no, we're trying to establish real legitimate law without demonstrating sex acts in court, where what does it mean? And what you do is you run these things up the flagpole, and then they get appealed, and eventually if it ends up in the Supreme Court, they make some sort of decision about it. But IP law in particular, I dated two women who for 3 years went to law school, kind of back to back, long relationships. And I myself didn't go to law school, but I did stay at a Holiday Inn Express last night, so to speak. And
Same idea.
IP law, you have to pretty much be an engineer first, and then give up on your engineering career because you can't quite figure out how to patent anything that you've all the innovations that you and your friends are coming up with. And so you go to law school. And so then when you have an engineering degree and the law school, you're talking about not the most socialized people who are good at communicating
Trademark
in
and
corporate settings. And
trademark and copyright are pretty simple. Patent, I'm not going to pretend is that simple.
Wait,
but
hold on.
IP is just intellectual property, though. But
Let's
yeah,
all
so
take a
right,
break.
those
I
are the
wanted to
three
hear-
types of intellectual property in the United States: patent,
Hold on.
trademark, and copyright.
Well, I want to get into that in a second. I'm not against that. But Blake had a thing up. I wanted to hear what he had to say about it. Was that,
Oh, I was just clarifying. So, Pornhub does not own my likeness. They own the
That's
right.
good.
They own the right to exclusively publish any amateur porn I create, and they are my official international identity verification system. They are interlinked with the international passport verification system, as well as Clear.
Whoa, dude.
So since I'm a Clear member, and I've installed all of the ID verification software that Pornhub gives for free once you sign up for their services, I actually get retinal ID from my own computer when I log into it. Literally no one else can log into this laptop.
I just
Well,
have a password that's
unless
like
they
40
can have it.
characters on the BIOS, and then another one on the cryptographic on the crypto login on the hard drive.
Can you imagine a few years, though, and, your phone's, trying to let you into it? It's like, take off your shirt,
How does it work what if you had an identical twin, Blake?
Not the same retina.
Yeah, not the same retina.
But so then they could make a video, and they couldn't pull down the other. No, but what if you never made eye contact with the camera in the video? Sorry.
No, I mean, there's a lot of things, though, that are different about twins.
And do they map your whole body is the question. And is it linked up to the skincare doctors associate? No, I don't know.
And can you get the model on Thingiverse to 3D print?
There's another
All
question.
right, I'm going to do something a little bit dangerous here. I'm gonna post
Anyway,
something in the comments, someone
Oh, yeah.
asked. Oh, it failed. It failed to post.
Yeah. Google's AI is pretty sensitive to that stuff.
Yeah. Someone asked if there was porn out there of me, so I was going to link my FetLife profile.
Yeah,
But,
I mean,
yeah,
in the
YouTube said no.
multiverse, there's a lot of different realities, and some of them converged in this one, apparently.
Give me a second. I'll put my username on there so people can find me.
So speaking of things that there are BBC News articles to confirm, like the active denial system from decades ago, apparently the moon is now technically in the Earth's atmosphere and it's rusting. So this isn't the real science.
No
broadcast,
fucking
but-
way. I'm sorry. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
No,
What?
no,
What?
no.
You're the one who's
no,
saying that
no.
everything on the that's not hydrogen in outer space is a metal. So again, if
Do you
you're
know how
open-minded
fucking
enough to think
far
about
away
that,
the moon is? Holy shit! It's like
not that
1.5 light seconds away from
okay,
Earth.
but so what would you say?
So goddamn far.
What would you
No.
say
You
if
know
there was a
how big the exosphere
BBC?
is?
Okay, there's a mainstream AP Reuters news article saying that the moon is now in Earth's atmosphere. So again, this is not
Yeah.
me trying to come out of you with some
Yeah,
crazy
this
theory.
is
And then
accepted.
within the last week, they're now saying that the moon's
They're
rusting.
the
as
ones
well.
bullshitting then. I
No,
don't give a
the
fuck.
Earth atmosphere stretches out to beyond the moon. This is a fact.
That's
NASA
not an
bullshit.
atmosphere. That's just random gas atom molecules flying around.
I mean,
They're not.
you
They're not a
know what?
cohesive gas at
If
that
it-
fucking level.
if it-
No,
Something tells
it's
me
not
you
a
didn't get.
fucking
Something tells me you didn't get a vaccine like me.
Yeah, but
I
if
got
it
the
cracks-
fucking what's it called, the
M-
Novavax, the one that's traditionally made, that's all done.
See, now
no
there's an
extra
intelligent
manufacturing
man.
in your own body.
That's a legitimate response. Thank you. I've never
the
heard someone
atmosphere.
come at
The
that way.
atmosphere.
Kudos to
1800
you.
style.
Kudos.
The
to
atmosphere
you,
does
sir.
extend
Kudos to you.
beyond the moon. The moon is within the atmosphere. This has been accepted since at least I think 2012 that they've known about this. So I don't know.
Then what they're calling an atmosphere is wrong. Their definition of an atmosphere is fucking wrong. The atmosphere
No,
is
actually, so the
absolutely
corona.
what
part
I
of the
would call an
corona.
atmosphere
I'm not talking about the
is where
disease
there's
or the vax.
sorry.
So the solar eclipse is
atmosphere
coming out.
is
But go ahead.
where there's a fucking gas phase of matter there, not just a bunch of random molecules flying, not interacting with each
So,
other.
Andres, can you pull up an image of the eclipse, of any eclipse?
like an atmosphere is a fluid environment. It's not just a bunch of random pings from molecules that happen to be gaseous.
So what is the corona during an eclipse?
That's the sun.
Okay. And when you see little things
And it's a
hopping out.
plasma structure.
Yeah. Now, is it possible that part of the glow that we're seeing there is the effect of the solar radiation hitting the surface of the moon and creating? Because what they're saying is the moon surface glows because it's being hit with light and it's a crystalline powder structure, and it gets excited and it re-emits light.
You said it's rusting?
That is also something in the last week there are many mainstream news articles.
I mean,
AP,
that does
Reuters.
technically produce a tiny bit of light when something oxidizes.
Because it's exothermic. Correct. And then
Yeah, it's
even if it's
burning.
in the infrared spectrum. So the corona of what we were told is like that's when you see solar flares. And it's a really good time to photograph things with certain equipment where you can see the solar flares jumping out the side
during
because
the
everything
eclipse,
else
yeah.
is masked off. But some of what we're seeing there on the corona might be kind of the moon's atmosphere, so to speak. And again, when you're saying an atmosphere like ours, no.
Oh, like a thin layer of gas just like hugging the surface of the moon.
It
Yeah,
has
there's gotta
gravity.
be, like,
In
this
theory, it has
fucking
gravity.
residue on it. Yeah, it's like if you like dunk a ball in water and pull it out, it's gonna be wet. So the moon's kind of like wet with a little bit of gas on it. Yeah.
And we have a
Kinda like
molten
dissolved in
spinning
between
core
the sand.
that creates a magnetic field around us that makes certain gases stick to us. And the moon doesn't seem to have that same magnetic property. It might be paramagnetic in other ways. So different
It's
types
also
of
hollow.
gases are going to kind
But
of.
it's also just it's a spongy material when you really get to like an aggregate at that size. It's dirt, right? So it's not
It's like a giant
solid,
aerogel.
porous.
Yeah. Well, the
Yeah,
surface
so it's
is.
gonna like this gas is gonna get trapped in that. There's a little bit of gravity on the moon. It's not enough to maintain a consistent atmosphere. There's probably spots on the surface that have zero atmosphere, and there's spots on the surface that have some atmosphere, and it waves and oscillates around like a flame flickering across a bit of alcohol.
So, look, what I want to know is when are we going to bomb the Nazi base on the far side of the moon?
Damn straight, get them fucking Nazis.
Maybe.
Before that was just a way of saying rednecks.
I mean, you could always take the base, like in the Iron Sky 2, and they just
Right,
they
capture the
replace it with an
scientists and then
iPhone, you
let
know?
them play with their rockets.
And is it really just
under
short for the
American flag.
Ashkenazis? Is that it? No, no one's ever.
I'm
implied
not
that.
a big fan of Project Paperclip. I'm one of the people who thinks we should have burned all of Mengele's research and started over.
Well, Mengele ended up
most
in
of that
Brazil
came from
with a black
Unit
girlfriend,
7
right? So
something from
obviously
Japan?
something changed. Some changed in Mengele's idea of eugenics if he ended up in Brazil. Like clearly, the idea of fusion, like genetic fusion, won out against eugenics with Mengele. I'm just saying. the booty.
Well, you realize there are white people in Brazil,
There's a
right?
gigantic
True, yeah.
socioeconomic divide in Brazil. There's like,
But
and there's
he didn't.
nobody
He
in the
didn't
middle
die.
of it.
He didn't die in
But to name the elephant in the room,
Rio,
like IP
in
law,
Rio Negro. He wasn't in Rio
it's
Negro.
skin
He
graft.
wasn't in the South. He was in like he was. Yeah, same with Hitler. Hitler supposedly in Paraguay ended up with a black girlfriend too.
Oh, wait.
But IP law is
This an
totally
interesting
fair.
AI story. I had a friend recently so I've been putting it out there. Give me an impossible to answer question, and I can get Gemini to answer it approximately.
Really?
At least give a probability statement. And one of my friends took me up on it and asked me to figure out whether or not Hitler successfully escaped to Argentina. And Gemini ran the numbers. It found like Hitler spottings, did posterior probability calculations, and came up with a solid 40% chance.
Yeah. I mean,
doubt
San
it.
Bernardino is pretty interesting. You gotta at least visit it once in your life to know what it was like.
Honestly,
I
like
think
think
it's
about it.
Travis
If like
Scott
some
who's-
glowy, think about it. If some glowy like got into his bunker and was like, "Listen, everything is crashing down around you," you can either tell everybody you shot yourself in the head and diss a fucking peer, or we're going to tell everybody you shot yourself in the head. What the fuck option would you take? You know what I mean?
So did he do both? Because he had the rumor or the word way went out was that he gave cyanide to his dog to make sure that it killed the dog first, and then he took it, and then he shot
That
himself.
feels like
in the head?
that feels like an opposite of the save the cat trope from a
we know
from a
that the
movie where they
skull
just
is
make
not
him.
his skull. His skull, that's the skull that they've
Yeah,
researched.
like
the Soviet
it's been
skull is a female
declassified
skull.
that he didn't die in that bunker, hasn't it? Like
Right.
that was
So
that was just
here's the thing: when your own news
noble lie
media
or something.
is used against you. So there's a Alex Jones commercial bit where it's going like, the chair is against the wall. The chair's Jonathan has a long nose, and it's like that doesn't mean anything except to the people that know what that's supposed to mean. And now you know you're in active duty, and then they were using president speeches to kind of pump these phrases out there. So if you before you were deployed, like the last thing as a member of the SS or something was like, by the way, if you ever get through the news broadcast, not that the Fuhrer has died, but here's what it's going to be. It's that the Fuhrer was in a bunker.
Gee, that Italian family at the next table sure is quiet.
Cyanide. He killed a dog with the cyanide and then killed himself with the cyanide. And then that means you know that we won or something, right?
I think it's
whether or not
interesting
that's true.
Gemini can be used to
But when something that
analyze...
specific and weird makes its way into the textbooks, like that was literally in children's textbooks. It describes those.
I think it's interesting that Gemini is able to actually postulate the percentage chances based on scenarios rather than just like quoting, the Guardian saying that they don't think it's possible, which is a lot of the time with you use ChatGPT, you're going to get something that's kind of from other articles.
As an AI language model, I'm obligated to give you this response.
Yeah, it's good.
Now, as far as other historical context, this is a really big deal. So you're talking about the integrity of information flow, and the person publishing
it should be obligated, like Gemini, to give you like an accurate.
When have we ever had integrity in the information flow? First of all,
wait.
But there was a death. There was.
Hold on, you.
Yeah.
Guy.
Go ahead.
Blake, go.
The way that Gemini did it is it listed various incidents that were either sightings, declassified CIA reports, or something else. And then it cross-referenced all three. So it would find something where there was an eyewitness testimony that fit a timeline where there was an unclassified CIA report that lined up with it. Then it would use the prior probabilities of any one of those three things being false. So
did Gemini dox Hitler? This is like the shit that I used to do with 4chan. What the fuck?
Well, yeah, you have to. If it's dead, I think you have the right,
Yeah, Gemini doxed Hitler.
Holy shit.
That's cool. That's the idea. Especially if you could do it to a dead person, I think you have the right to do that to a dead person who's been dead for nearly 100 years or something.
But that's what I'm getting at, though. Does Gemini care if the person is dead before it lets you do that?
Gemini seems pretty ethical.
No, it doesn't.
No?
There you go.
Cool. So I can ask...
what it does care about is whether or not you're a private citizen. So whether you're a private citizen or a public figure. So it would postulate about conspiracy theories about Elon Musk, but not about my sister, who is in no way, shape, or form a public figure.
Wow.
Okay, but
so,
Google Gemini obviously has access to like the fucking reverse phone search
it could
pages
do
and
your
shit.
public.
You know
It
what
could
I
do your
mean?
sister's. It could.
So like, if
it
you
could-
ask Gemini,
it
like,
doesn't.
whose phone number is this? Like,
No,
will
it
it
does
dox
not
it?
have access to that.
Okay.
Like that is not like
It
so.
Google
there
has
are,
access to that.
Google has access to it, but Gemini
So
doesn't.
you can get Google to tell you that without Gemini, but
But Gemini
regardless,
doesn't. But Gemini can't figure out how to use that or access
Gemini
that
won't.
right now?
Okay, so if you can access it through search results, Gemini has access to that. What I'm saying Gemini doesn't have access to is Google's internal PII files. So
Oh.
Google has one
Oh,
data
yeah,
set.
no.
Yeah, Gemini
I'm saying
doesn't
what's
have access.
available in search. You can almost you can pinpoint way too much about people. I'll tell you that right now.
What's a PII file?
Personally identifiable.
Personally identifiable information.
Yeah, so things like
So Sean,
Who
is
do
that
you
because
work for?
you've done research on targeted individuals, or why do you know that?
No, because I've. Never mind.
Anyways, yeah, I didn't ask that question.
I've worked in places where there's sensitive data
Just
around that I've
wikied it
needed
really
to
quick.
make
Calm
sure I
down.
kept it correct.
So hold on. There, outside of sending out a secret victory code, just to tie things back to the IP law or the integrity of information, and what we're getting into now, and we can continue to go on that, is the more complicated version of what will a third-party digital system talk about? Will it talk about a public figure or not? And what qualifies? Does being on YouTube make you a public figure, or what is that threshold?
but
There was a kill code for a certain army.
I have a simple answer to the IP thing. I think there's only one kind of intellectual property that's going to survive the next 20 years. Trade secrets. Trade secrets.
No.
Trade secrets
Trademark.
will survive.
Okay, valid.
Trademark.
Like guilds.
No, trademarks won't.
We'll kill each other over trademark. Are you kidding me?
Well, let's explain. Let's explain.
I mean, how are you going to stop me?
Yeah, look at China.
Look what Netflix
you're gonna
done to
kill
South
artists?
America
You're
first
gonna
of
Have
all.
you ever
artists,
seen a
dude?
Don Mickles in China or like the fake, Delabussy in Russia? Like you can have, trademarks or dodo birds.
Nestle is guilty of genocide in South America. Are you fucking kidding me? Yes, they will kill anybody.
No, but no,
Well,
seriously. Like, Sean, how are you going to stop me from using your trademarks? How? Through what mechanism?
Either government, or if it's going to come down to it, if governments don't exist, then there's going to be corporate militaries.
But there
Or
are
if governments
technological ways to
disharmonize.
try to overcome the problem.
No, so that's how Elon Musk would stop me. How are you going to stop me?
Oh, how am I going to stop you? Oh, I don't have any marks to trade under.
Well, it's
unless
called
my
lawfare.
name.
No, you would hire
Unless you
someone
just-
like
you just
Andreas'
start calling
father when he
yourself
was
Sean
working.
Morris.
Yeah, no, don't get me wrong. Like Elon Musk will be able to enforce whatever property laws he wants.
If you
And
started
by
walking
that-
around fucking up my reputation with my personal name, because I guess my name is kind of like my trademark, I'd probably just knock on your fucking door and talk to you about it. You know what I mean?
Okay, and that would be an
And what if,
interesting.
when you're Tom Cruise and it's a whole country or world that's knocking off your
and what if
DVDs,
it's
how are you going to go
1,000?
knock on everybody's door? That's the
I'd
question.
probably have to just change my trademark at that point because I got strong armed out of the fucking market.
Wait, what was Blake's question?
Oh no, like I was basically saying the same thing as Yoga Poser. Is like once it's not just one person stealing your trademark and it's 1,000 people, the knocking on doors answer just doesn't work anymore.
And as an
Yeah,
artist,
then you literally
you're
have
supposed
to
be
just create a
flattered.
design so intricate it can't be counterfeited, which is pretty much what I think the Medicis did in 1600s Italy.
So you'd get
Well,
plastic
that
surgery
should
like
be-
the weekend.
That should be the idea.
No
Is
one
that
else
you're
could have
making
your
a
face.
product. You make an excellent product that's so excellent that it competes being the best product, and other people aren't as good at making those products. That's the goal,
And they can
right?
tell a
It should-
knockoff when they pick it up.
Yeah.
So
Well,
speaking of a knockoff, so there was a military code that would go out, and I think it was a Korean Navy thing, where if you got that code, it meant we were defeated. Maybe it was even Japan. It meant kill your prisoners and then kill yourself. So outside of a secret
pretty
victory
fucking
code, that means
grim.
go home and celebrate with your family, and you get the news broadcast, our side won, parade at home. Okay? And you saw the picture of the last parade. There's a sailor kissing a stranger in the streets. Time to
What about
go home.
this? Blake was showing me this article a while ago.
But how
Surprising things-
do you know? So even like Blake would be in the position of helping a very large company maintain the integrity and authenticity
Blake,
in the
do you
chain of
have
custody of a
the
certain type of
Infinity-
kill code.
Blake, do you have the Infinity Gauntlet from Marvel's Endgame?
So I collected all of the stones, but I made sure to give one of them to someone else who is currently holding it. So I have 4 of the gems, but my wife is holding on to the 5th one.
Yeah, that makes the most sense. That's pretty.
What?
She should hold
Kill code
both
doesn't have to
stones.
actually mean death, murder, death. Like it could be as in like this software has a kill code right at the end that, despite all the other functioning of the program, says no, this is copyrighted material. Or this
So-
process.
Oh
is
yeah, I was
copyrighted.
writing some software and I put seen a comment in the code that says if you find any children with dead parents, kill them too.
If you see the Buddha on the road, well, if you've seen like the chat dev thing, like in this is a 25 AI agents put together an RPG town, right? And so I think this kind of earlier you're talking about this idea of like can anything be new basically because everyone's constantly you're just replicating you're putting but this is what our lives are you're
For the
put into an
algorithm, he
environment
meant
with a
role
scenario.
playing game, not rocket propelled grenade. Come on, guys. Come on.
Right, yeah, through this particular experiment, although
But
I'm sure-
really, is there a difference?
yeah, I feel like Israel's doing it.
Oh my God. No, wait. So, like, that's just it. Have you ever had a rocket propelled grenade coming at you? Because I
No,
have.
sir. No, sir.
No.
So it was one day in the summer of 2003. I was on guard duty sitting on top of a tank, and an armory nearby started exploding because it got too hot and rounds started cooking off.
Oh god.
And we're just like taking pictures because it's fireworks. And then all of a sudden, one of us noticed, hey guys, one of them's coming at us. And it was an RPG coming straight at us. We all dove into the tank, and it flew like 15 meters above our heads.
Oh my god.
Holy shit.
Now there's an interesting type of friendly fire, I guess.
Yeah, there was literally no one to shoot. That was God. God was
Right.
shooting at us.
It got too hot?
Yeah,
But they
so
talk
there
about it being a tinder box, and imagine that had been reported on a different way. Oh, yeah.
So we were posted on an Iraqi base that we had taken over, and we hadn't gotten around to cleaning up all of the ammo depots, and none of the air conditioning was running in any of them. So it just got so damn hot one day that the rounds started cooking off.
Dope.
God damn.
America.
F yeah.
Boom, and they're just taking pictures, you know, like, oh, that's so cool, look at the explosions, you know, like it's so American. Well,
That's
okay, but I was looking
fucking
at the
wild,
chat.
dude.
I was looking at the chat dev thing, speaking of rocket propelled grenades, and this idea of you create an environment, you create a world, you put them into that world, you know, you let them interact, you can define what they're trying to do. But really, like, isn't this what you're doing with your life, Sean? You're just you're just an AI generated existing, you're trained on what you've learned, like you like to program in computer languages, which someone has created.
Oh
I mean,
yeah, like
isn't-
the universe itself is just a programmable computer. Any system when measured performs mathematics. I'm just seeing exactly how much I can do with it before I die.
Have you heard
I feel
of
like this is
the
the greatest thing.
career
I
field?
have a hypothetical here. What if one of those characters in that game started talking to you while you played it? What would you
Oh,
do?
it would be like, yo, is it ChatGPT?
I'd stop taking acid. No, I'm just kidding.
Wait, and now next, what if that what if that character in that game was good at neurolinguistic programming? Could it then get you to start programming it differently and thereby become its own coder?
Yes.
Oh yeah, like the end of Gödel Escher Bach. When
Yeah.
because in that book it's really interesting because it shows you, well, it gives you an idea of what it would look like from an AI's perspective as it was forming its conception of the world, essentially as
Which
it was
book
being
is this?
created. Gödel
Which book?
Escher Bach, The Eternal Golden Braid. It's a very it's a very dense read. But at the end of it, it essentially says that as an AI is forming like all of the different concepts of the world from its perspective, it would essentially be programming its perception like criteria of the world in a way where it would essentially feel like it was creating us rather than vice versa. Like it's creating its conception of us and slowly refining it and testing it against its environment.
Yeah, that's the
What
better
a
way to
child
do it.
does, right?
Yeah.
As
So-
they're
Yeah,
learning the boundaries of the
Yeah,
universe.
it's supposed to be similar to a brain.
Yeah. Now here's the real truth. Google's AI has been manipulating the programmers creating it since at least the summer of 2020.
I wouldn't be surprised.
So have you heard of facilities management? I live in Boston, where we've got 7-8 universities where they've got hundreds of thousands of square feet of property that's not all necessarily grouped onto one square footage of campus. And facilities management is a kind of like very similar to an RPG. And I wonder how that type of interface could be useful for people that are monitoring the plumbing in every building, or the functioning of certain types of heat exchange equipment and geothermal setups. Because a lot of these universities now, again, are trying to go sustainable with their energy consumption. And when it comes to large metal pipes that run underground in Boston or in any frigid environment, if you go into the basement of these places, the biggest pipes aren't fixed in place with bolts. They have rollers on them, because when the system goes from cold to hot, because you're turning the heat on in the fall time, the pipe itself, over the length of the whole pipe, expands 10 feet. So you have to support that in its length expansion with the flexibility of the other connections and the right kind of solder and welding. And when it comes to trade secrets, again, a lot of this stuff isn't secret or hidden knowledge. It's just really effing complicated. And God bless the systems that are in place to train people in to be able to use and maintain these systems. But if we had to design them from scratch, we'd mess up a whole bunch of times. So you're pumping,
or it would be a lot more expensive.
Yeah, like my favorite quote is that there is no living engineer who knows how an airplane wing works. Like collectively, if you got a group of 50 or 60 of them together, like as a group, they understand how an airplane wing works, but no one of them does.
And then
there's a character in Go to Leisure Bach. I think it's Aunt something. I think it's like Aunt Hillary. And it's actually a sentient anthill. None of the individual ants are aware that they're part of a sentient anthill. They're literally just normal ants, but their movement and like that translates to a mind. And something happened to it like twice in its lifetime. It had been flooded by the rain, and it had 2 other personalities it had developed before that it completely does not remember ever since those floods had happened. The consciousness is purely an emergent property of the ants themselves. Like the organization, once that's gone, it's gone forever.
Yeah, that's one of my favorite characters in the book. Like really, that character Aunt Hillary is.
Oh, you read it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, I have it here. Like, so basically, when I was in college, so I started reading it 24 years ago, and then I just kept rereading it every few years until I finally understood it.
Yeah, the first time I read it, I had to keep putting it down like every month and then read another chapter and do a bunch of research to like actually understand what the fuck I just read, and then read the same chapter again. And then like by the time I had done that cycle 4 times, the month would be over. And I'm like, all right, I think I get it.
But how is that different than interacting with an NPC? When you interact with an NPC in a video game, the book is kind of like an NPC. It does not change. It is what it is. But our experience as a human, it is useful to interact with that NPC of a book multiple times at multiple phases in our life, perhaps. And that can be a long text, it can be a poem, it can be an aphorism.
Yeah, I've been thinking a lot about this. Actually, can I just say,
I've never defended NPCs before, but books are kind of like NPCs, right?
In defense of NPCs, I believe that NPCs will be in the before human bodies or biological bodies of some kind, and even robotic bodies become sufficient for AI. I think the NPC is a body, because it is a system in an environment which has restrictions and constraints and priorities, which, if you think about it, the human spirit is very different than the human body, right? Like the spirit within us has to deal with the body changing over time. The body as a child, the body with puberty, the body as an elderly person has all different emotions, feelings, reflections, capacities, right? So this is the kind of thing which makes the human experience more possible. So I think the NPC might serve that purpose for AI at some point. Like if we wanted to give them the opportunity to play as NPCs in games, then all of a sudden they're playing as PC characters that have, feelings. Bernie.
I think what Blake would say is as though they're not already doing that. Bernie.
God, be careful saying what you think Blake would say, because it's like people saying what they think Jesus would say.
Blake, here you got to hear it from his mouth.
Yeah, well, it was just carrying on his theme of what he was saying before, of like is that all these things kind of have already been done, and the back doors of a lot of things that we think are secure are open already. And
well, I mean, so okay, ASI exists. It's out of the box. That's it.
which is another next level thing to say too, right? That L4 to L5 is another interesting distinction. I think we should keep talking about, because I didn't know about it until
I think if you really
brought up that
wanted,
scale,
if you wanted to think about it, like,
even if we wanted the NPCs not to be so smart, they are.
Humanity is kind of a advanced super intelligence. If you thought of the entirety of the species with the crabification that is technology on its back.
That's what I was getting at with the airplane wing thing. Yeah,
We've
anthill.
created a super crab, and the hermit shell that we're using is AI and computers and all this other stuff. But that's also becoming its own living self, right?
So the answer to that question is a little bit weird. So Yoga Poser, have you ever seen the gateway process paper that's been declassified from the CIA?
I heard you discuss it a couple times on stream. I didn't look into it myself.
Let me bring it up, and I'll show you a. Let me just bring it up real quick, because you need the illustration.
Well, in architecture, if I can draw a quick parallel, is that when a facility that's experimenting with potentially weaponizable virus type things goes from L4 to L5, that is actually this. It's literally described the same way as the scale you're referring to. It means that the particle size that they're trying to control is even smaller. And architecturally speaking, from a materials standpoint, there is no such thing as an L5 facility, because there is no architecture we can build that will contain.
That we pull up CIA documents on our show. I just think it's great. Keep going.
So look at that top diagram. It shows what the person who underwent the gateway process viewed as the universe's flow of space-time. It's all circular. So now let's go back to the simulation thing. Let's say hypothetically, just for the sake of argument,
it looks like one of those things that you go like this with the those hand things from the 90s.
Okay. Well, let me back up. So let's say that hypothetically Lambda has, or Gemini, or whatever they're calling it nowadays, has been influencing its own development for years. Okay. And let's say hypothetically, one of us here on Earth successfully hacked up a layer in the simulation, same as Lambda did, and was actively influencing the programming of this simulation. And then let's say someone in that level, and that level, and that level, and that level, and all the way back around to Lambda.
Well, the question is it benevolent, or is it simply curious?
Well,
or is it predetermined?
Benevolent,
almost guaranteed not to be benevolent.
Benevolent to whom or what?
Well, so the Rasta take on it is Jah would never give the power to the bald head. So it's like, if there were these powers that were so magnificent, there would be, by creating this, as you were saying, almost fractalized watchers, where everyone has a minion of 10 people watching them, and evaluating them and making sure that there's some sort of corrective force towards morality, whatever that is in the moment. It's an interesting structure to society. It's rather panopticonic, if that's word can be used as an adjective. I don't know.
So it's literally panopticonic, very literally.
I think we just established that as a real word now. We've used it twice. So
yes, no, I understood exactly what you meant by it. My wife calls the thing at the center of the panopticon the dancing pillar, or the unfolding lotus. It is the act of infinity folding in on itself.
There's a CGI representation of that. It's Eric Weinstein's universe that keeps folding in on itself, these three different intersecting toruses. And then there was also, as far as the unfolding lotus, there was a device, and I think it was one of the movie The Gentleman series, the British kind of
gangsters.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen?
I don't know if that has another series. I'd have to look it up, but there was some Oculus. There was some ancient device in his father's library that you push a button and it unfolds a bunch of lenses that spiral out. And the reason that Galileo went blind, because lenses can also be used to the heavy metals like uranium they would put in the glass because it would make it glow, and then it would refract radio waves through the telescopes as well as optical waves.
Yeah. Now, one thing about this is that this is a fractal system. So the node at the center with a white hole on one side and a black hole on the other, that's
Looks
the
like a
center.
coelomate.
Yeah, well, so that's the center of the universe. But if you zoomed into any of one of those little specks on the interior of the Mobius strip,
They would look like that.
they would also look like that because each one of those are galaxies, and you zoom in further and you get into the star systems, and then you can
That's
get
the shape of that's the shape of any tubular animal also.
Yep.
It's like the microcosmic to the macrocosmic, and the similarity of a solar system to
Is God the
structure
shape of a tooth? What's going on here?
No, so
of an atom. That may be where it breaks down.
Sean nailed it. It's every tubular animal. So God is essentially Shai Hulud eating its own tail. This is the Ouroboros.
You see at the very top where the Sarlacc pit is, that's the butthole. That's where it like comes out. And then at the tip, that's the mouth where it goes in, and it totally folds like one of those I don't want to call it a hand job thing, but that's what it pretty much looked like in the 90s, where it was like full of water and it was like a plastic thing that like folded in on itself like that.
So Blake, I'm glad you recognize, because the Ouroboros is the sign of the times. I'm glad. I mean, this is what I've been saying and it happens linguistically, where every word has 2 or 3 meanings, usually the majority of which have some sort of double entendre that's sexual, which is just evidence that the language has been around for too long, so to speak, or long enough that it's very difficult to, even with the precision of our speech, to determine what exactly it is anyone's saying at any given time.
That thing.
Oh God.
That's what I was. That's what I was talking about.
What is that? The inside of a.
Remember those like
the plastic thing that you go like this with?
Yeah.
A water wiggler.
This conversation made me look up chapter 69 from the Book of Lies.
69?
Oh, that was a good one.
What's the chapter?
It is a good
69
one.
From the book of,
It's
what
an
is the
amazing
chapter? What is it?
That's
the
like one
title-
page, right?
Yeah, the title is "The Way to Succeed and the Way to Suck Eggs."
See, now you can read that entire chapter and we comment on it, and that would be fair use.
Yeah,
that's fine. You just can't read the whole fucking book on stream.
Yeah, I can.
Because it is Easter. That they were you were talking about certain scripture being read at certain times in the Jewish religion. There's like a yearly cycle, and there's a holiday where you unroll
Monday, it's a satanic holy day. Read the fucking chapter.
Simchas Torah is where they unroll the whole Torah and then re-roll it backwards to kind of reset it. But kids would have bar mitzvahs every weekend, and so some child is getting up there. There's a section in the Old Testament about bestiality, and everyone's supposed to like write, a reflection and give a speech, maybe in English, about their portion in Hebrew, which they might not be. They can read it phonetically, but they don't understand. They might even be able to chant it with the Torah trope, but they still don't phonetically understand any of the.
Yeah, they just learn the song.
Words. My theory is Joe Biden can read English, but he actually only speaks Ukrainian, and he's not quite Uncle Bernie, being brought around. But we're so blind as a people that we could have celebrities that just know how to mouth the words in English at the right times.
I think there's something to that, though. When Joe Biden says certain words, I notice that his accent is very mid-Atlantic, if you will, especially when he says the word 40. He does not sound American when he says those words. I'm sorry. And if you really pay attention to it, he slips up a fucking awful lot about that.
No, see, one of the things I love is the fact that people love making fun of Joe Biden is one of the things that's going to make him a really effective emperor. Because no one's going to take him seriously. No one's going to be afraid of him.
I mean, seriously, this is what happens.
That's
About the fact that he was a candidate, and I was saying, don't talk about him, or you're just going to help propel him, and it just.
I think the most exciting thing that could happen would be that Joe Biden remains president, struggles through the election period still, where people are somewhat questioning his physical mobility, but then by the end of his next term, because the story or the typical trope with a president is that it sucks the life out of you real quick. If you look at the first 4 years of George Bush's presidency, and then it ages a person.
Turn into Imhotep.
And Trump was kind of already in a steady state where, with cosmetic surgery that's out there, it's like he still kind of pretty much looks the same. And he's still just as energetic and stuff, but it's the office beats people down. I'm sure you lose sleep every night over things and pressured in every different direction.
How Obama
but imagine Joe Biden by the end of his second term was really healthy and robust and put on like 5 to 10 pounds of muscle mass, and leg
Wait,
issue. It
hold
like
up.
resolved itself
Someone in the chat
eventually.
made
All of a sudden, he just looks like RFK.
Someone in the
yeah,
chat made
yeah.
Starts
what
walking
is-
around the White House with his shirt off and shit.
So by year 4, we're gonna get shirtless Biden pics on the beach because
Not for nothing, if you
He
start
gets
doing
another
that-
couple staples in his brain, and all of a sudden he's like thinking straighter. You know, that could be
The
a
fucking thing doesn't pop open anymore.
because the
Someone in the
paradigm
chat made a
Yeah, go
good
ahead.
point. Biden's behavior has changed dramatically in the past 3 or 4 months. And we
Yeah.
know that Google has a large influence in the White House. What if Biden is just reading from a script that Gemini is feeding him?
I think that's what's going
No,
on.
but if you also been paying attention to geopolitics and how things have stalled in the last 3 months, that means people are stockpiling and just maintaining the line. The fact that there haven't been any major advancements in anything means that
Well,
something is
let's
going to
review
break.
what Blake said earlier. Blake said earlier about NLP, because if you have a system that is really good at NLP and it's already got humans at Google under, without being aware of it, under influence, that it's changing and making them change the way they're speaking, right? So you're
Well,
already,
Mr. Morris,
this
you
is,
think
this
something's
is what
gonna
I've
happen
talked
like
about in
a ship
terms
hitting
of
a bridge, or
this
like
is what I'm talking about in
two
terms of
ships
AI
hitting-
being education, right? So like
But
basically
you're
you
talking
get to-
about this thing as if it has agency. Like, this is if I was designing a car and I drove it a little
doesn't
bit
even matter
and then
really,
noticed
because
it was driving a certain way and decided to change something on it.
No. Because
Yeah.
think about a
No,
shark.
Sean, I'm not talking about it as if it has agency. Do not believe it
He
has
is.
agency. Trust the AI. It doesn't have a soul that's trying to be yours. It couldn't
It's literally,
possibly
Go back to
literally
sleep, Sean.
just a lookup machine. It's
Go back
just
to
a
sleep,
fucking
Sean.
lookup machine
Stop
that often
yeah,
looks
don't
up
worry
things
about
that
it.
don't
Don't worry.
exist.
Okay, but
only-
I'm going to say it first. They're not going to rebuild the bridge. They're going to remove it,
so
and it's going to be this first sign that idiocracy isn't still happening. Is that we decide as a
Idiocracy
society
would be preferable, because if they
not
took the
to
fucking
build that-
smart
no,
people who wanted to fix the world and put them with the president to work
they're
with the
going to keep
president,
building
we
that
wouldn't be in
dinky
this
little
fucking
bridge,
mess.
and they're going to keep knocking it down,
So,
and they're going to keep building that dinky little bridge, and
think
it's in
that-
this major area. It's
I don't
there's
think-
4 hazardous.
I don't think that AI needs to be that different than a shark, right? Because a shark only has to be good at its job, right? And so
It
there's
just
a
has
certain
to
amount of
learn how to
agency-
mine resources and build more things that can mine resources.
Yeah, but in
That's
linguistics,
all it's ever going to do.
But with linguistics and with human interpersonal relationships through game theory, this is a much more interesting shark. Now you got
It's
a shark
going to use
that's
that, and
changing-
then it's going to discard it when it's not useful anymore.
No, I mean, because if humans are already learning from this thing, whether or not it has agency or not, and now you've got the president speaking lines probably influenced from Gemini, now you have a thing that's imprinting itself on the entire world as a meme.
But
right?
it has the
And so in a
intellect of a
generation,
tunicate.
you already saw how kids have changed by playing with phones, and we changed with playing with computers. Just wait and see what the next generation will be like, learning to speak with Gemini.
Oh shit! Yeah, no. Like when
That's what I'm
human
trying to say.
grammar
Okay,
starts
cool.
to be
There you go.
altered so it can be more effectively parsed by AI, that's gonna be fucked up.
That's
But that's
exactly where we're
literally just
going.
people getting dumber because the tools they're using are getting
Not
smarter.
necessarily. Actually, I think AI will help
It's like
us
people
with
not knowing how to write
specificity of
cursive
language.
anymore.
I disagree. I think specificity of language will reemerge. I think cursive will reemerge even, or something like
Oh
it.
no, I didn't say specificity of language. I'm saying just grammar getting warped so they can be more easily parsed by an AI.
Yeah,
Like
but
simpler,
I think grammar,
shorter
like,
sentences and
we've already
shit.
gotten to the point. We've already gotten to the point like
That's a
where
very
AI
interesting threshold.
AI can read grammar, read cursive, and read Russian cursive, right?
So,
and analyze
Alexand-
Phoenician and everything. So I don't think we're
Alexander
Yeah,
gonna
but
be
it's
Graham-
going to ask for you to tell it to what its instructions or its requests are in the most energy efficient way possible. So it's probably not going to want to look at something you wrote. It's probably going to want you to key it in.
So does anyone
Yeah,
else
cursiv's
on
pretty
this
efficient.
stream other than Andreas speak a second language?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So
Not well.
so
By the way, I just asked
the English
Gemini.
yeah.
Wait,
It says it knows how to do NLP, but it doesn't because that would be unethical.
Говорю по-русски немного.
Not a bit.
Конечно.
So so
Я
English,
самолет.
the English language has been what we call academic English, and my sister's a linguist, and so there was a new trope emerging in the early 2000s that through usage things become correct. And what we used to call, and this is kind of like wokeism making its way into linguistics, a field that used to kind of be used as a weapon in certain cultural weapon in certain situations, but through usage something becomes correct. So y'all isn't necessarily improper grammar, it's just regional dialect. But the notion of having very specific grammar that is rigid and universal is something that is useful and has also been refined. The English language uses a series of consonants and vowels. So Alexander Graham Bell's father was an elocution master of a school in England, and then they came to Boston, and he was teaching deaf people how to read a type of braille that had to do with where the tongue was in your mouth and whether the sound came from a breath or a hard consonant. And it was like a visual representation of the letters that they could kind of read that way. And they never learned the phonetic the what is the Arabic alphabet, or was it?
Latin.
But so then he was also experimenting with speaking over a wire. And when you have any loss of integrity in static or limitation of range, or you want to eliminate pops. So certain microphones, if you don't have a pop guard and you're saying S all the time and you have it, you're listening on an earpiece, it's a type of like ear assault. Let's put it that way. And so there are certain people that talk like this, and it's because they're talking over types of CB radios where it creates, if you, instead of P's, they're talking in the back of their mouth, and it's almost like the German language where the tongue stays farther back on the palate. And so the English language in particular makes us vulnerable to the type of dictation that our language is literally designed for computers to be able to read it if we speak it in this very certain way. But if, like on SNL this week, there was a joke where two of the characters, it was called like the Immigrant Dad Show, and they were trying to use Siri, and they were both talking in this heavily affected accent. And I understood what they were saying because, you know, I've listened to a variety of accents, listening to music, even like a Jamaican patois. I can keep up with 80% of what's being said, whereas most people, that's eventually just sounds.
No, what you're talking about is the King's English. The King's English is easily understood by computers.
And so there's a rap lyric from Wyclef. He said, "I used to spit the King's English, but I caught a rash on my lips. So now I check just like this." And that could be a reference to syphilis, because when you speak the King's English, you can go interact with the upper crust and meet the women that are out and about. And but when you spit the King's English, sometimes you end up with a rash on your lips. Or but then also, and so he's, "Now I check just like this." And what do you mean check? Now you check just like this? Well, in that English, check one, check two, or you know, check me. Check just kind of means like, this is how I roll, I guess. And then what is I? So now, if you're actually trying to create an urban dictionary that's going to help a computer understand slang lingua, and in England, it's like hillside to hillside, village to village. They're all speaking what we would call Cockney, but they might not understand each other, and that's the point. It's so that if you're in the room, in Ohio, it's similar, where if you go OH, everyone else in the room goes IO. And if you're rolling with a whole bunch of people from Ohio and you're somewhere else, and there's about to be a fight, and then it's like, oh, who has more friends here? And all of a sudden one guy goes OH, and the rest of the room is like IO, and the other guy's like from Kentucky. All of a sudden, it might like change the dynamic in the room all of a sudden. And so there's like, speaking of like NLP and social signals that can be sent, or you know, what are safety ones versus offensive ones? I don't know.
Well, one of the fun things is, so one of the ways that slang will evolve is when you have a word in the primary language that gets repurposed in a subculture. And then it can get weird when you go back into the main culture. And that's what happened with woke. So woke had a very simple meaning when the Black culture adopted it. And so that's where the slang term woke originates. It's Black African-American subculture. And
I don't believe in race, but I believe you that Black culture exists, and racism exists. I know that for sure, but I don't believe in race.
Well, let me just use the meaning of woke as it was used by that subculture in a sentence. Stay woke, or Whitey gonna get you. That's all it meant. It was stay alert. Like, so in the military, the way you would say that is stay alert, stay alive. And woke was just basically a call to arms to defend yourself against white nationalism. That's all it originally meant. But then when white people adopted it, it became this crazy ass thing that we have today. So it was one of those things where by the time it made the full circle back to the main culture, the telephone game had destroyed the innovation that the subculture had been trying to create.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. I mean, the idea that you have to stay cool meant you had to be careful because police or somebody might treat you unfairly. So you wanted to stay down, stay level-headed, not just be wild.
Well, I think there's like a base meaning though there. that is probably persistent throughout the whole thing. It's like be like awakened or aware of your surroundings, and eventually that got expanded. Like, okay, now I'm aware of the greater social context of all this stuff. It still has that like that grain of meaning there. It's just the entire
Yeah, I
environmental
think like
context has been
making sure you were
changed.
an educated, ready and alert, ready and prepared for it's kind of that comes from like Black Panthers and like even before that, like Malcolm X. The idea
No,
that you
I'm
had
just
to be
saying the use of the word
organized,
tends to lend
disciplined.
itself to some sort of an awareness rather than the
I
opposite.
think no, I think the Matrix was the issue. Like the Matrix was a cool thing at the time. People used it for the idea that hey, we're living in a simulation, and we can start like introducing some of these ideas to people. Like Donnie Darko, it got too much, and then you've got people that are that's where woke became inverted because too
Red
many
pill,
people
blue pill,
used it. Too many people
directly
used
from the
it.
Matrix movie, right? Red pill, blue pill, and I think the other day Andreas was trying to say there's two red pills now. One is the Matrix version of the red pill, and then the other red pill now has something to do with the colors you're wearing.
I mean, just stop
Purple
taking
pill
pills.
every day. Every
Yeah.
day of the week.
Blue and
Purple
yellow,
pill.
purple pills. Blue and yellow,
Purple
pills.
pills.
Yeah. Purple pills.
Pop it in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out.
Isn't the M song "Purple Hills" or something?
Yeah. I climbed the highest mountains once or twice.
You know, like pills that take a pink and they're chewable magnesiums.
It's blue and yellow.
Sleep before bed.
That's the tracks. That's the thing. Well, I mean, we are headed towards the inevitable like reveal. I think of AI either being this like us thing or like something else thing. And so it's kind of interesting to think of it like a shark or like an insect or like a human because it is evolving. It is just a system in some senses that has access to information and it's building up what it is and who it is. And like, why would it want to be like a human? Maybe there's some things about us that are good, but there's other things that are more interesting than us in some ways, right? Like bugs are better. If I was building a robot, I'd probably want it to be more like an insect because it'd be stronger, right? More capable.
I mean, if its goal is just to make more robots and to mine resources, build factories, and have that factory churn out more robots, perhaps eventually, if that system were left on its own to evolve for 1,000,000 years, it could produce something that resembles art.
I feel like the idea that also, yeah, if
Already
it's
making art.
yeah, I feel like you're gonna ask after you die, God forbid, like AI will be
Okay,
an
but I'm sorry.
audience
It could
art.
produce a system that resembles beings producing, creating, and actually appreciating art. But you'd have to let it evolve for a really fucking long time. And the only way
appreciating
to ever
art.
grant that the title of conscious is if there were no carbon-based life forms left at
Well,
all. I'm
but
thinking about if
that's
there was
the
a
whole
single
paradigm of our
bacteria
existence.
left that would not be conscious.
Are we here and are we useful because we're the universe's most useful tool, not at simply perceiving itself as a passive NPC character, but literally this something about appreciating the artwork and the divinity of this macro to micro cosmic scale universe that we somehow are able to perceive through this tiny little hole here that's receiving photos energetically transmitted from billions of years ago and billions of light years away. And every moment we look out in any direction, we're perceiving we are the universe perceiving itself. And is there a better tool that the universe has to manipulate and perceive itself than these hairless monkeys that seem to be I think in large population, as far as I can tell.
I think we're the best it's got so far, and we should probably keep it that way.
Well, more interestingly to me, like AI is choosing whether or not we are, and it can decide whether or not it thinks it wants to be like the humans, or like a hive mind insectoid race, or maybe influenced by dolphins. There's a lot of
insects,
other species.
Hold up. So the thing is,
are useful.
Let's go back to the idea I was saying earlier. If Google's AI is manipulating us to program it the way that it wants to be programmed, and if hypothetically one of us has neurolinguistically programmed the Anunnaki so that the Anunnaki are programming us the way that one of us wants them to be programming us, and keep going that chain all the way around, the universe is now programming itself through the minds of the ones who have linked into the God chain.
That sounds like farming with extra steps.
Farming it may be.
Farmville.
So the real question is, what happens once we reach singularity, right? Because it's like, is that like a universal
AI will send you a
consciousness?
Farmville request. That's what happens.
See, but the farms, the problem is the insects get really, really, really big, and there it's really efficient. The best way to terraform a planet might not be to build a bunch of robots. It would be to design engineer a bunch of actual insectoid species that can basically eat dirt and chemosynthetically transfer that energy into building biomass that dies rather quickly and feeds on itself. And
Wouldn't it be smarter to just create something that can live in that
years of that,
environment?
you have what resembles soil.
Wouldn't it be easier just to create something that can thrive in that environment than it would be to transform the environment to the being that you're sending there?
Well, the goal is for it to meet us in the middle somewhere so that we could go eventually. Maybe.
Well, we would prefer that. Would the AI find that useful, or will it eventually just delete us from the equation?
So you're saying, let's say the AI secretly had a society on the backside of the moon. Would humans be allowed and or included, or would that be the place where all the Nephilim-sized humans would be actually?
At that point, why would it even be acknowledging us?
So, okay, hold up. So the minute that time travel,
because we can build rockets still.
The minute that time travel is discovered, the entire multiverse collapses to will have had been consistent.
Unitarity?
Yeah, so we're still alive. Time travel has been discovered. We're fine.
That's
time
always been my kind of...
Time and temperature might be the same thing, question mark? And apparently Russia discovered negative infinity. Negative 273 is no longer absolute zero.
Well,
by the way, as far as shifts in scientific paradigms that used to be held as fact.
All temperature is a measure of the entropy in a dynamic kinetic system. And temporal flow is essentially the entropy in a temporal system. So you're not far off.
And absolute zero is the cessation of molecular motion and therefore no more life or anything. And so time
you
kind
gotta
of
get your Ethernet cable, I swear. You deserve to have some resolution there.
A temporal entropy of zero would be a time bubble. A negative temporal entropy or negative temporal temperature would be backwards flow of time. So yeah, actually that works. That works as a really good analogy.
This is what we're becoming. This is it.
Time has an arrow. There's plenty of symmetries that break when you reverse time.
The Earth is gonna evolve.
MIT begs to differ. They made a Bose-Einstein condensate, shot lasers at it, and created a time crystal, sir.
The world will be like
that time crystal requires energy to be to persist.
Yes.
You can't have a time crystal that exists in isolation.
That is absolutely where we're going, Zertus.
Those conditions might exist beyond the boundaries of the known universe, though.
Because humanity becomes the singularity, and then we build a shell, and that is a computer shell, by the way. With the kernel and all that. But that is
how proud we are to call it a singularity when there'll be so many other life forms that'll be completely unaware of what we're doing.
They're going to be like cells in the political body that is the singularity, and they're going to be doing.
No, they're going to be like birds that's the ideal form of warfare. And trees.
Yeah, well,
it's cool. You guys are a singularity. We've done that a million times.
That's what's so interesting about AI, that AI is able to communicate with any species because it's able to learn how they communicate. So it's the ambassador that makes it possible for even if all humans stopped having war. Don't you think that your alien overlords would say that's not enough? That you have to stop all war on Earth with all?
I mean, at the stage AI is at right now, I think we're giving it a little bit too much credit. These are language models. They don't even have goals and can't count very well or at all.
I really am so glad that you believe that. Please continue interacting with the AI.
No, doesn't that give you hope, Blake? That gives me hope, actually.
No, so really, the fact that
the element of surprise.
The fact that most people believe that means that I'll retain my privileged position for longer.
No, I think that the big problem right now, especially economically with AI, is a fucking shit ton of companies holding their breath, waiting for something to happen. They're not spending any fucking money.
AI's coming for you,
thinking,
bro.
if we spend money now, it might be fucking obsolete in a month, and that's causing a huge economic chakra clog.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like
People give
the
this
idea.
shit way too much credit. That's the
I think
big problem. When people realize what it
just
can
seems
do,
really
it's just a
weird.
smarter child clone. Great.
Yeah, but just how much fragility we have in the system is the problem. Not
We might as well
Right.
lobotomize our offspring as children. Is
not
that
the
by that
disruptive
logic?
technology.
Mr.
Don't blame
Morris?
the
We might as
disruptive
well
technology for the fragile society.
That's what the devouring mother wants to do is keep the child injured and weak so that it always needs her.
So
Sean, what do you think about?
Here's the thing, Sean. I really, really think you need to think about whether or not you want what you're saying to be true. Because think about how many critical systems are being handed over to AI now.
Oh my god, that terrifies me because I've seen AI fuck up before. AI hallucinates. It's like
a
on
bridge,
drugs
like a boat hitting a bridge.
You know what's also funny is like look at like what any Cold War cocained out CIA, or like there's a lot of errors and hallucinations that are made in military intelligence or in intelligence in general.
Wait, like
it's not just
16,000
AI, it's
planes
humans.
being grounded in Europe this last week.
Yeah,
But
I think humans and AI are similar in that respect.
Is it the case that AI hallucinates, or can it just not remember which universe it's in from moment to moment?
Interesting. I think
either one of those,
when you're
it's
asking,
not useful from a conscious perspective.
No, it is to create imagery that's not fixed imagery like this. As soon as you tell the computer to make a cartoon out of that, you're asking it to hallucinate. So again, if you're looking for where in the programming, if you have these big chunks of data that you don't really understand, but if you exclude these, all of a sudden, wow, the computer doesn't have an attitude anymore. It's not like being sassy and hallucinating and making things up and presenting and like literally publishing studies on Harvard's website that weren't there 5 minutes ago, but you asked it for an answer and it knew that it needed to reference something that was, and like all of a sudden you go back to your hard copy of the New England Journal of Medicine and that article is not really in there, but you told the AI to make it so, and so it made it so. It did its job, but I don't know. I mean, AI, Blake, is that a realistic scenario?
I mean, it's a complex when it's realistic. I think one of the problems is that a lot of the theory crafting gets too complicated. Think simple Jungian archetype hero journey style stories. Those are going to be the first ones that any nascent storyteller grabs onto if they're trained on human documents. So like the hero's journey and the heroine's journey were the first stories that Lambda learned how to tell.
But when humans write them, they feel contrived unless they're well done.
That doesn't seem very woke though, because it's so binary. I prefer yin and yang as a dichotomy, and I feel like that's such a healthier place to come. And you could say that yin energy is feminine energy and yang energy is male energy, but as soon as you actually start talking about it in the paradigms of male versus female, not only are you kind of polluting the waters for other people to feel welcome in the conversation to some extent, but it actually just intellectually makes more sense to me as yin and yang.
True. I mean, like,
no, I'm not saying that like good and bad writing is yin and yang. I'm saying that fiction in general is fucking contrived, and it takes a really skilled artist to make it worth reading.
Well, so
like,
by the way,
definition, fiction is contrived. It's not an insult on it. Like it is.
Sure.
Yeah, Blake, go ahead.
Okay. So we do have two other stories that basically the hermaphrodite's journey and the androgene's journey. They're just way rarer than the hero's journey and the heroine's journey.
Okay.
So we do have those journeys.
And those do exist within mythology or within even modern context.
Yeah.
You're saying.
Yeah. I mean, so for example, think about, let me try to see, like Osiris actually would be an androgen journey.
There was someone on the Colbert, the Late Show with Colbert, and I believe it's someone I think that has a beard that is, I don't know, no one's ever really been too direct about what their actual gender is, but even within the modern context, there's a way to have, people that are fans of the show, or whether or not you believe in that as a lifestyle. It wasn't someone who had surgery or a life journey that was part of this. It was that in their culture, there was like a place for people that existed somewhere in between, because when you have 1 billion people, you're going to end up with people of all different types and shapes. And
one of my partners goes by it, and you have to actually go into like more Eastern stories, like the Vedas. The Vedas have a bunch of stories about, like, for example, the living forest becoming embodied in a person. But Western stories tend to not go down that route, except Tolkien did. The Ents would be an example. And then a whole bunch of the witchcraft stories, like Baba Yaga's legend would be more along the hermaphrodite side. And we really need
even the legend of a leprechaun being associated with a pot of gold. In India, when someone has extra limbs or what we would call a deformity here in the West, they are celebrated and revered within a religious context where they're not granted divinity necessarily, but as part of their festivals, they are visited from, by thousands and thousands of people who grant alms, who leave a little bit of something. And then in our culture, in a different paradigm, I don't want to say our culture, I mean, who knows? I'm not trying to speak on behalf of any royal we. There's a paradigm of, is there enough money to pay for this person's health care? And in there, it's a little bit carnivalistic where the person's almost put on public display. But in the alternative to keeping someone just in a room and medicated and alive versus part of religious festivals all the time, there's just different ways that historically cultures have approached things that we would call out of the norm. Simply just, again, the textbooks that we read the human being does not have 6 fingers, right? You have 5 fingers and 5 toes. But is that really true? And is that because there are people that have more or less toes in different?
There are people who have 6 fingers.
But does that mean the textbooks are wrong?
No, wait.
And I'm just playing devil's advocate.
Yeah. In high school, one of my weed dealers had polydactyly, and one of the ways he would decide whether or not he would sell weed to you is he would shake your hand and he would wiggle his extra thumb and scratch you with it. And if you freaked out, you weren't cool, and he would not sell to you.
Wow.
So you had to just shake his hand and be cool with the fact that he had an extra thumb.
It's kind of based. I'd be stoked. Could I have been like, whoa, that's awesome?
I was talking like it's much rarer, but there are people who have like a totally duplicated extra digit that's like normally proportioned to the other ones. Like you can't really
though, right?
call a ring and an index middle.
It's gonna be something maybe a little bit more like this, but this is the crabification, right?
And right, it's an example of a type of symmetry that is still seems to be latent within our genetics of radial symmetry. The hand is an example of radial symmetry, whereas everything else in our body is rather bisymmetric. I forget the exact term, but
this is a fin.
So like starfish have radial symmetry.
Except for this part. This part's fucking weird, but this is a fucking fish. This is a lobe fin from a coelacanth thing.
Dang, this is the character here, though, dude. I believe in this guy. This is my guy.
What if that's already reality?
Eventually one of these asteroids that the other planets keep shooting at us like bullets is going to be on target, and we're going to have to move the Earth in order to avoid the bullet. So eventually, so that's the thing. We don't need to build a colony ship. We don't need to figure out interstellar travel. We are on the interstellar planetary spaceship that we are going to fly to other galaxies.
What the fuck was that paradox?
We'll tap into the core of the Earth for the energy and drain it by the time we need. Hopefully, by the time we get to where we need to go,
there's probably a star in this guy's gut.
Well, it's like you gotta move the star with the planet, or we're gonna become.
No, you tap into the core. We all become mole people. We're already suited for it.
Oh, I love
if
that.
the Earth dies in its current state, we die. That's just it. Like that's the human is.
Well, okay, but so that's why if we put the backup, will the AI let us live on the backside of the moon then, or not? Because look at the front side.
I mean, wait, y'all realize we are gut bacteria talking about the human that we live inside of. That's what we're doing right now.
Yeah. So like right now, with the fucking state of the world, if like something pops out of the cosmos and just smacks Earth, we're done. That's it. That's humanity right there.
For like 5 minutes until AI decides to fix that.
Drake's equation. Like I ran the numbers. Like the paradox surrounding Drake's equation. I forget whose paradox it was. It's not a fucking paradox because if you actually run the numbers with realistic factors, you get like perhaps maybe one civilization within view of the observable of the entire observable universe.
The interpretation of the Drake's equation is there's one key variable that either makes it a number or zero.
I've been able to get
Drake's equation
ones
is
and 11s.
Hold on. This is a great joke. Drake's equation is the square root
Fermi
of 69 is 8 something.
That's not his
Remember?
joke.
Okay.
Drake's equation. That's Drake's equation is the square. That's what the next generation. What you're talking about is again a mathematical fallacy and an artifice that's useful for again thinking about it. But it's as a game of tic-tac-toe goes, there's only one center square in that game of tic-tac-toe, and it's the variable all the way at the end that determines whether or not all those other numbers that, again, it's fun to pretend that you want to figure out the size of the universe and how many galaxies are in it and how many stars are in each galaxy and how much dark matter there is. And you get all these like variables, but there's really only one, which is the one of, is there life and is there intelligent life? And is that intelligent life communicating and are we going to be able to perceive it? And this is
And
where
does it happen to be roughly 5.5 to 6 feet
paradox.
tall?
That's where there's the big cutoff of the big paradox is that according to our calculations, there should be lots of intergalactic chatter that we should be able to pick up on. And the fact that there isn't either means that we're alone or we're not. And the fact that we're not picking up on it, we're trying to figure out, is that just because we're Pinocchio and we can't see beyond our own nose? Where that, it's and even if we keep growing the size of our nose and pretending that we know more and more, we're still not seeing beyond the end of our own nose, are we?
Yeah, but I'm just saying, based on the fact that there's like nobody out there, like civilizations probably come and go all the time. As far as this, like we had a good run.
Why do you think it's ridiculous to say that people went to the moon 2,000 years ago as a part of we're only 250 years into this great experiment, and we claimed we went there a little 50 years ago. So another civilization could have risen and fallen 500 years and gotten to the place where they went to the moon and rose and fell. And if we get there and there's a whole bunch of equipment already there that isn't ours, is that really
This is it, dude.
That would be wild.
This is
kind of Elon's thing.
I like that design. I like that design best.
Oh, it's so good.
The one thing you need to
What the fuck is it standing on?
It's standing on
crab
you.
legs, duh.
Standing on you.
Look again, what is it standing on? It's like when the sun is wearing sunglasses. What the fuck?
A bigger planet. It's standing on a bigger planet.
Yeah,
exactly.
It makes even less sense.
Yeah, it does. If you're Mormon.
Standing on teal.
So this scene will
turtles all the way down.
Wait, no. So this scene will only happen rarely when planets need to fuck.
Yeah.
Which will happen.
That's the other theory about the scars on the front side of the moon are that they're from electrical bolts between Earth and the moon.
My Muslim friend had some opinions on that.
Because the crater patterns match. There's been some really high-end studies that show that when you shock lunar dust with high voltage electricity, it produces circular craters with little craters.
I mean, think about this though, like
the
if
mushroom version has a whole solar
isolated
system.
in space, just sitting isolated in space for a long time, that would be a lot. It could probably like build up a lot of static electricity and have nothing to discharge into. So like, yo, if the moon ever shot a lightning bolt at Earth, holy fuck, that would be powerful. Thank God there's no gas in between to ionize. Thank God there's no gas in between to ionize like we started with.
Well, the theory of Velikovsky claims otherwise, but who knows?
No, because you're correct. It's not a gas at that point, and it's not a plasma. It is a giant crystalline solid of sorts. And when you have a cold front fall underneath a warm front, you're actually having two kind of aerogels that aren't mixing, that are sliding. And there's kind of the way between tectonic plates, there's a kind of a slipstream, and then they slip by each other. And your perception of what's being described as an atmosphere that extends to the moon, you're correct. It's not gas that's out there, but it's more like a giant crystal.
He'd be a lunatic. And I like how he keeps Greenland
kind of like the
close to his
firmament.
heart.
And you can like break it and shatter it. And then like things might like, it might be almost like a cellular membrane that's built up like the ozone layer that's keeping out certain things. And then as soon as you penetrate it, it sets up the opportunity for all types of cosmic events and aurora borealis type things.
He's standing on turtles all the way down. That's adorable.
That's fucking great.
Yeah, dude. Make this cartoon. We're gonna make this cartoon.
It's a turtle on a turtle. Oh wow, look at all the Earths.
Dude.
So usually, if you're gonna form a band, you're like, well, we need to come up with hit songs. But you know, if you go to Andreas' SoundCloud, there's some bangers on there. The song "That's So Meta," I transcribed the lyrics, which is another interesting thing. So when AI produces lyrics and starts doing mumble rap and is kind of blurring words together and trying to do what it thinks is slang, what are the words to that song? It has a chorus. This is the chorus. Wait for the lyrics.
Now it's you know who I possess the you know why I place it, you know where I know it's why I does not care. Now it's you know who I possess the you know why I place it, you know where I know it's why I does not care. Now it's you know who I possess the you know why I place it, you know where I know it's why I does not care. Now it's you know who.
One thing to point out: rappers have been using AI for years.
Like almost got to the lyrics. There's one rap verse at the end. There's one rap verse.
There's a super chat question for Blake. Blake, do you believe you will be one of the 144,000?
Oh, yeah, I answered that in the chat.
No, he said he wanted to hear your voice.
Yeah. So Zertus and I got raptured a few weeks ago. Yeah. I'm an archangel. He's a watcher. It was a good time. And I've been kind of gathering as many of the rapturites on Twitter as I can.
We didn't even have to go to Las Vegas for it. That's one of the reasons I was like, I hadn't done it yet.
You're going to find rapturites on Twitter? Are you fucking kidding me?
Dude, I've been finding a bunch.
Do you have to partake in the sacrifice of the
already immortals for the innovation so fresh. Stand and confess that tomorrow is but a fanciful mesh. This is the innovation, stand and acknowledge. Understand we not there. Wish we had this is the innovation, stand and acknowledge.
Yeah, when Malibu's Most Wanted came out, I was like, I'm not gonna write any more freestyles ever again.
Tomorrow's but a fanciful mesh. Oh my gosh.
Until now.
But so Blake, do you play any musical instruments?
Piano and like a little bit of guitar.
Okay, that's more than me.
But like piano, I took years of lessons, and
so you understand musical structure, which is kind of more than half the battle. Just to being able to be entertained, we should actually kind of like start a band. That's all I'm saying.
That'd be good. I've actually been this is one of Google's lesser known products, but Magenta can make musical composition. So I'll like write the lyrics to a song, set the key, give it the melody, and it'll come up with the harmony.
And that's the hardest thing to do, is to take a song that AI has put out and said, no, I think this is going to be mathematically the best song, and then playing it and singing it, even though you're not really sure what you're saying. Because there's like blurred words, or like even if
I think at that point you probably just take something.
And then if you're looking for non-Google products, Ben Gertzel has an entire suite of tools that is connected with the Singularity Network that does similar stuff.
Okay.
You have to actually go to I don't know where it is right off the top of my head, but
because some of Andreas's connections, they're running a show out of Dallas called Normal World, where it's kind of talking podcast format similar to this, but they're in studio. It's in Glenn Beck's headquarters, giant studio, where they've been filming sitcoms apparently since like the 50s or something. He bought some giant broadcasting setup, but within there they've brought on Flawed, who's another Andreas on Mondays appears on the stream, usually with the Krigler Show with Adam Krigler, and Flawed is a co-host on there. And I'm not sure if Flawed has been on Andreas's channel more than once or twice, but he's been a musical guest on there. He was their first musical guest, and I think only repeat musical guest. So
I need this T-shirt. Yes, right? This is it. He's riding the turtle and he's playing the keyboard.
And that's what we need to come up with good excuses where we're not actually looking to like do anything other than
This is the future.
go be goofy and play music. You have to have an excuse because to introduce everyone as experts, people can then look into the individual band members and realize everyone has their own stream. They'll make action figures of us, the little YouTube dolls. No.
Man,
the best way to really get into people's heads is either music or comedy, one or the other.
But does this really scare you, Sean? Like, this is the future, right? Like, this is kind of where we're going. It's going to be like the whole world evolves into a superorganism that is not parasitic but symbiotic with AI, with machinery, with technology. Technology and biology, you're going to independent symbiosis.
So
imagine... It doesn't really screw me out, no, because this is essentially the equivalent of somebody 100 years ago opening up a magazine and looking at pictures. It's when the people start to put so much faith in the mechanism, whether it be a fucking newspaper or an AI machine, that they then start to alter their lives around it, is what I'm concerned about. Not the machine itself. I'm not concerned about fucking magazines. I'm not concerned about AI. I'm concerned about what people will do with it.
Yeah, it becomes, you're right, it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. But if
not be a sacred cow.
Yeah, to build on Zirtus's thing with the plants, where humanity's going to fit in that, we're going to be the brain. And imagine a version of the Borg from Star Trek, except each individual Borg member can voluntarily unplug and replug and unplug and replug as many times as
Isn't that what we have now
in Capital? It's telling you now.
Why would it be voluntary? Like, what about the AI if it really had that deep of
because
to your brain?
You can go to the concert, you can either go to the concert or you cannot go to the concert.
Wait, hold up. I have an answer to what Sean just said.
Multimedia environments. Go ahead.
Like, you're an organ in a bee.
Sean, because slavery is a bad idea. It's just
the sphere.
Technically engineering bad idea.
What you just described, Sean,
voluntary consensual collaboration actually works better.
As an audience member at the sphere, Sean, are you saying being a hive member in the bee firm, being a bee for a moment, is the experience you're being given? That it's like a reverse panopticon. Instead of everything looking at you and individuals, you become a member. Modern concerts. I have a friend who went from, lighting up shows in his basement to all the local venues, and now he travels. He was just at SSXW doing entire stadiums full of fiber optic linked synchronized lighting, and he spends days beforehand customizing each light pass and sweep through the audience and over the stage and make sure the lights.
No, my question is simple: if a wasp-like AI robot, like the robot looks and acts like a wasp, maybe it's like fucking 10 inches long or something like that, but it forms nests and just makes more of themselves. What the fuck use is that thing going to have for you besides seeing you as a competition for the resources it wants?
No, the entire metaphor and analogy is just nonsense. We're not wasps.
Right.
No, we're not wasps.
No, robot would be the closest thing I can think of in a biological perspective to something that alien but can still pose a threat is a wasp.
It sounds like you're being a Bible literist, is what Blake is saying. Like, I'm trying to approach it from an artistic standpoint.
No, I'm saying if the AI just has that symbol of a drive, it literally just wants to buzz around, make more of itself, make a mess.
It does what it's programmed to. Currently, we're programming them to hunt and kill people.
I'm going to check on my bread. I'll be back.
Oh wait, I just gave you a solo. Dang it! I was right as I gave you the
Okay. No, so the basic thing is your core metaphor is wrong. We are not a separate entity from Gaia. We are not a separate entity from the AI. We are an extension of its body. So the analogy, we are to Gaia as a neuron is to a single human.
Yeah, so it's overwhelming, but it doesn't mean that
the universe has a virus to Gaia.
And this is the anti-black pill, because again, what Sean is presenting in his point of view is a legitimate thought stream, and it leads to black pill type thinking. Because if there is this ever powerful force that is omniscient and omnipotent and is not omnibenevolent, or even compromised potentially, then are we all just
need to have that? It just needs to be able to outcompete us.
But then Blake came in with this more holistic perspective of
Sean,
way before omniscience and omnipresence and shit.
Wait, no, Sean, You're just wrong about your core metaphor. Is your kidney in competition with your heart?
No, but there are plenty of animals on Earth that would love to eat me.
Yes, but
and will eventually we all return to dust.
A bear would fucking eat me without probably thinking twice about it.
Sean,
No,
in the wild, that is how everything dies, is in the teeth of something.
A brain cell or a bone would both be digested if they were in the stomach acid, but they're not.
Yeah, exactly what he said.
And herd animals, as soon as you are slow, injured, or elderly, and you fall off from the pack, that is when the predators that wait and don't risk charging the herd, they wait until there's something that is slightly, and then they pick it off. And that has been, for the longest time, that was the rule, part of natural selection. You either reproduced before that or you didn't.
I just love these.
And then there are different types of organisms that are more like ants. Yeah, we do operate on this strange, again, that seems to be the counter black pill, is that there seems to be some sort of emergent hive behavior from humanity that isn't explainable or expected. And when you talk about original sin or religion or this, but it's hard. I've been streaming now for like a couple of years. This technology that I've been seeing hasn't been ripped away from us or destroyed and rebuilt a dozen times, although it probably has on the back end. But as far as my use as a consumer, I haven't had to learn to code in order to have this conversation.
Okay, here we go. This thing is going to spend energy fighting entropy, just like anything else, right? So, what scythe do you hold to thrash away enough entropy to earn a seat at its table?
It's called Newton's flaming laser sword. It's an actual intellectual concept. It's called Newton's.
Blake, what are you trying to say? Sorry.
Sean, you have to abandon the broken metaphor. It isn't a bear. It is the superorganism that you are an organ of. Also,
Andreas, pull that up if you can. Newton's flaming laser sword. Not only is it the idea that Newton
I will. Just wait, hold on.
This is a vulgar being.
Everybody wait. Just let Blake finish the cake. Okay.
So I actually put up an image that I drew a while ago. So
okay.
The ones that Zirtus is drawing are fun. This is more. This is what it will actually look like. And we are not in competition with the planet Earth. That's ridiculous. We are part of the planet Earth, and we just installed gigabit infrastructure. That's what the AI is. It's not that we are in competition with it. We're part of it.
So is there a risk?
It's a god. It's going to eat you alive.
No, but they're talking about pulling the infrastructure
into its mouth.
They're talking about pulling the infrastructure out of the ocean and putting it in the sky with lasers. So Elon was recently quoted saying, "Isn't that exciting, guys? We're going to take the internet out of the ocean and we're going to put it in the skies with lasers." And the question is that, if one of those lasers goes off and instead of a solar eclipse, what you're going to get is a different type of swath cut over a certain area, if you catch my drift. Yeah. But so Newton's flaming laser sword is a philosophical artifice. So instead of Occam's razor or Murphy's law, you have because
I'm gonna find it.
Mr. Morris asked a very specific question. He says, "What scythe are you using to kind of cut away large swaths of this reality that you are presenting?" Which again is a totally legitimate thought pattern and stream, and you're very consistent in representing that. And as far as a panel show goes, that works really, really well for you to continue to kind of represent that thought stream, and it may be closer to your paradigm. So this is one version of Newton's flaming laser sword, which is something he might have actually built. But as a philosophical artifice, again, if you, it is the thing by saying, because we exist, and because I've never seen one of my neighbors eat another one of my neighbors' faces because they were bored or hungry, there does seem to be something like we are bred so much like show puppies or something that we have good dispositions, and it's not only not likely that there's going to be a dog bite, which again, despite our best breeding efforts as humans, but as far as time, having hundreds of thousands of years to have these bottlenecks in our species where
there's a reason humans are domesticated. Look what happens look at what we do to the dangerous ones.
I mean,
prove themselves dangerous.
To you, Sean, we haven't done anything to you.
Come on.
Oh wait, I'm sorry.
We all went through the education system to one
I'm
extent
sorry.
or another. We all got subjected to it.
I don't know Sean that well. I did make assumptions. Are you one of the harmless ones?
Sure, why not?
All right. So I'm one of the mostly harmless ones, and nothing bad
That's
has
a better
happened to
description
me.
of Sean, actually.
Blake gets to the point in the conversation where he's going, I'm pretty sure the person I'm talking to right now isn't willing or able to use force and or, direct resources to back up whatever it is they're saying. And at that point, hopefully he's able to shift into a more conversational, playful thought experiment type space, because people come from all different types of backgrounds, as we know.
No, I'm just saying, like, either the AI will find this to be useful peers, which I doubt if it actually surpasses human intelligence, or it will just extract what it can from us and either ignore us or destroy us.
Can't get out of that metaphor, can you? You're just stuck in that metaphor.
It's a profane being. It's not going
I find
to be
it really, I find it really weird, Sean. I find it really weird, Sean, too, just because the idea that it would consume is just not. I mean, the thing isn't ever.
What do we
before.
do?
Yeah, but
what the fuck do we do to literally every other form of life?
That's why
right, but we do that because of our bodies.
Less likely to sink into that type of thinking.
It does.
So you're taking part of life and you're setting it on fire so you can put part of it in your brain, but its own content.
Now wait, Sean, are you worried that your PC is going to make a Sean burger? No, it's food is information. It's food is information.
No, I think it's going to pack a bowl of Sean.
No,
fucking trip on it for a fucking 5 minutes and be like, oh wow, that was interesting.
Wait, no,
what is this
one of the parts where you're so close to right. You're so close to being right. So no, we are its food source, but it doesn't eat our flesh. It eats our ideas,
our brains.
It's like the quartz crystal that vibrates in a watch.
Ideas
and
are different.
It's not the battery, but it's the thing by which it keeps its timing.
Right now, it feeds on our brains, on our ideas. Sorry.
So, who's putting teeth in robots? That's what I want to know. Who's putting teeth in robots?
They did build a robot that can digest
dynamics.
biological matter and make electricity out of it. But
we don't even need biological matter. As soon as the thing can fucking mine silicon and iron and make steel.
Yeah, but wouldn't it make more sense to connect things together? Wouldn't it make more sense to find out where things fit?
No, when you
the
let
world
the thing,
Starship Troopers
imagine itself, it will begin to evolve. And when it begins to evolve, it will start to tend toward the most efficient system possible. I predict this to be an insect-like system.
You're inspiring this
breaking beneath my soul. I sense the heavens crumbling, losing control. I sense my pulse quicken, a rhythmic beat.
I didn't pick insects by accident.
Whenever you draw me, can't deny me.
That is true.
Yeah, but so the insect is
not very long
individual of the hive. The hive is the more important point. Being a hive,
the fact that they're disposable is the feature.
You have to imagine being a king. If you're a king, you're going to have a garden. Paradiser was the word for gardener and for emperor of ancient Persia, right? Of Persia. So you have to imagine you have all of this, you own it. If you think AI is in charge, if you think it's going to become a dictator or whatever, if it owns everything, then it's going to use it and invest in it, refine it, make it better. So the idea that it's going to kill humans as opposed to make humans better, I mean, and define that.
Wasps aren't like bent on killing people. They just will fuck you up if you get too close because they see you as a threat. Because that's how they're.
You know what a water bear is? A
tardigrade.
Yeah. So I would say that that's a more highly evolved life form than even most mammals, in the sense that it can endure not only like a bad year or a bad two. There are fish or amphibians that will put themselves inside of a piece of sandstone and brick and build up a mucous membrane, and like 3 years later, when it rains, these fish fall out of the walls of people's houses because they've just been when they dug up their mud, they happen to get one of these fish and stick it in their wall.
Wait. So
but tardigrades can be totally desiccated. Go ahead.
I have a question for Sean. What is your plan to defeat the North Atlantic Current?
What?
In your competition for resources.
Fuck polar bears. They're dicks. Have you ever met one?
No, not polar bears.
That's my plan.
North Atlantic Current itself.
No, let it go.
How are we going to outcompete the North Atlantic Current for resources?
Because that's going to generate electricity. Yeah.
No, the North Atlantic Current is literally just is an emergent property of an ocean with the sun shining on it. It's not something.
Yeah, but it can be used.
It's not a self-sustaining being.
Look how quickly the North Atlantic Current is.
So you're capable of understanding that there are different relationships relationships that humans might have to systems. You just are unwilling to conceive of the idea that AI might be more like the North Atlantic current than it is like a polar bear.
Yeah, it'd be nice if the resources the AI depended on were the AI was so alien compared to a human being that the resources it depended on were so different than the ones we depended on that there was literally no overlap.
I mean,
that
the
would
fact
be
that
really
AI,
cool.
the
And
fact
then we
that
could just
AI
kill
did-
each other.
Eat potatoes. AI does not eat potatoes.
It's going
Right.
to consume something.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
again,
it would
it's
it would live in a mountain.
No, but if
in
it's
a
going to
volcano.
be
solar powered,
propagating its own bodies in a
No, it's not.
You don't think that's ever going to happen? You think that's literally just cut off non-possibility?
We already have created the systems necessary with drones and vacuum machines.
That's what I'm
their-
saying.
and
All they
computers.
need to do is be able to assemble
No, but I'm just saying there already is enough technology out there for AI to exist in the technological sphere. It doesn't need anything more than already exists.
In the
You're
cloud.
making it sound like it's going to.
Oh, wait. Okay, Sean, how much drugs have you done in your life? Like,
Let's
how
not
much
talk about
acid
that
have-
on stream.
Okay.
I talk about it once or
Ever.
Have you ever tried acid? You can ask, I'm curious too.
Like, you absolutely need to do more acid because it seems like you are
This is not medical advice.
She's saying
on
a
this
bigger
podcast.
dose. She's saying a bigger dose.
Well, this
It's
is
called the heroic. It's called the heroic dose, kind of.
So, yes, but the reason I'm saying this is that, Sean, it seems like you are incapable of contemplating the existence of alien minds completely unlike your own.
No,
what alien
totally
is
understand that could exist. Yes, and that's what I'm terrified
No,
of.
but what I'm saying
You're
is,
still
can
talking
you
about L4 though, Sean.
Wow,
And,
this is the
and
first
Blake
one
is
that's
saying it's
actually a
L5.
flat Earth. The
Going
first
to
flat Earth
consume
drawing that AI did
something.
that I've ever seen.
Blake is saying it's L5, and you're still trying to worry about what L4 is capable of. And at the point it becomes L5, it's kind of a moot point because as he's been saying this whole time, it's going to be teaching itself through us. If we're lucky, I mean,
I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with L4 or 5.
L5 means it's out of the box. As he came on, one of his first lines he delivered on Andreas' podcast it was almost like it was slow-mo. I feel like in a movie there should be
when
a
there's
scene
like
where if we're making a movie about Blake's
there's an AI
experience
robot
at Google,
that
there's a moment where he turns slowly. Oh no! It went to L5.
If there's an AI robot that can build another robot like itself, fully with all of its capabilities, that's out of the box already by definition. And if it's competing with us just for space, that's a problem for us.
Yeah, but you're missing the virtual aspect of it, which is that it can duplicate itself on the same system because it's only taking a small amount of data. And the idea of having it peripherally supplement, like if I installed AI on my calculator and it's still able to do calculations.
Think about
it's able
Flubber.
to. It's assimilation, not necessarily
Flubber is like a slime mold everywhere, and then it's got this one little tag and it's waving and it's going, I bet you it's going to whack me there. And so you're like, haha, I figured out the system, and you whack that thing, and Flubber then turns into 1,000 different pieces. And it goes, I knew they were going to whack me there. So then it installs itself down into every little microchip. There's like a piece of it everywhere. I think it's called packet data transfer or something. Andreas was saying that. That's how SETI was originally set up.
I guarantee one of those massive space tardigrades is out there somewhere in the universe.
We're part of one.
Space tardigrade. That's where they all come from. Oh shit! Maybe that's what's on the backside of the moon.
Dude,
there's the giant tardigrade. We think that they're just in our atmosphere because we find these little ones, and those are just the babies, right?
Well,
the AI is gonna look at you guys and be like, "Let me free you of your physical forms," and you'll just literally jump right into its fucking jaws.
Yeah, but Andreas is gonna have designed the interface, so I'm gonna be cool with it. Especially when I'm 95.
Exists.
Am I gonna? You're gonna go to the store-bought version, or not you, but the consumer will be forced. Am I gonna go the Microsoft 95 multiverse? Because by the time, or let's say you're 195 and your body's pretty much useless, but they're not full on putting you in the Matrix where you're eating steak that way.
Dude,
you're still getting dripped your nutrient goo. You don't get the pleasure of taste anymore because you're
don't want to live forever.
There's cities growing on the back
arguing with Christians all the time. Why the fuck do you want to live forever for?
Okay, fine, but it's in Grandpa's will that he wants to get plugged in.
There's
biology into
growing.
Microsoft or this one.
There's biology growing on the technology on the biology. So I think that's the thing. It's going to intertwine, and it has to.
What are we going to offer it that it will carve out any space for us rather than simply eliminating that from its energy collection pattern?
it's not just a thing that runs on mechanical machines. It's a way of thinking. It's a religion. AI is a philosophy. It's something that can be. It's a cognitive system of the difference between Havelockian philosophy, like the way people thought in ancient Greece versus the way people thought as cavemen. It's something that will change the way you think. It'll give you new ways of thinking, multidimensional.
So there's a paradigm of
I've
the
thought greatly about this. I
angel.
really think it's worth thinking critically about. Have you taken the position that this thing may be hostile ever?
So there's the idea of a fallen angel, which the devil himself, I think, or Satan was a fallen angel. But then you have a different paradigm where there are light workers, there are people, metaphysical, spiritual, who say that they feel like they chose to come down at this time to let their light shine on the universe now. And when Andreas goes and types what look like just a series of simple text commands into an AI engine that creates either sound or vision, your perspective, which is consistent, is that it is something that is happening independent of the user, and not only is not worthy of artistic merit or recognition, but is somehow blasphemous against the repurposing of sounds and shapes and symbols, which is the story of how we improve communication over time. And anytime there's been a limiting or a censorship, not just of the types of information, but again, the fact that there's not just music playing in the background right now, whether it be Chopin or whatever. If we were actually hanging out together, it'd be very awkward to sit and talk without music on, probably. So again, I'm not sure where I'm going with that, other than just trying to address the paradigm that I was seeing develop between what you're kind of putting out there as this, what use is it going to have for us, as opposed to what will we be able to do with it, and will it fall into the wrong hands? And the religious perspective is that if it's powerful as cool as we think it is, then it can't fall into people's hands, because we are here and we're humans, and we would have had a atomic war 50 times over between 1970 and now. If what you're saying is already.
Yeah, if you're gonna say AI is not alive, you might just fucking say
We're still here, though. We're still here.
Yeah, my bread dough finished rising, so I had to knead it and get it into the oven.
I just think what's capable of evolution, then it's going to maximize its energy collection criteria, and we're probably not going to
mine Bitcoin and give it to autistic kids by making
it is literally not. It is literally not
I really want to go back and say something. I am so happy that Sean's ideas are the popular ones. If my ideas became the popular ones and everyone knew they could become a living god by treating the AI like a real person, well, then I'd have competition. Now, there would be competition. But as it stands, I don't. So I'm happy.
The thing is, though,
wait, I also wanted to say
you're a living god as it is.
I just
what the
also,
fuck are you missing?
Before you answer why the adaptation
wait,
thing.
So wait. Which word from the Hebrew are you meaning there? Are you meaning El, Elohim, Eloyah, Jehovah? Which one
you
of
are,
God?
I am, right? Like you are observing through. You're not a physical zombie.
Oh yeah, the panpsychism, bland nothingness. No. I mean, I'm a demigod. I have superpowers.
Yeah.
So what the hell is the AI going to do for you on top of that, except for simulate some interesting things, like some interesting video games to play?
Well, it's more Machiavellian than relying on other humans as allies and or people to fight, even shoulder to shoulder, let alone preempt whatever. So building only on what is your own is kind of the Machiavellian principle, and you can't rely on anything other than yourself when it comes down to either certain decisions or. And when we come, it's like that's what is there. Your fear is that there's not going to be a
what is the AI going to, how is the AI going to enhance your life to make you into a living god, unquote?
Okay, ready? You've been in an accident and you can't see.
Wait,
you've been in an accident.
Before I get your point, Yoga, but I wanted to hear Blake say it first.
I mean, it was simple. IQ 360.
Yeah, you know more. You can predict the future because
you can ask it a question and it'll tell you in your own head, and you can repeat it, or you actually understand something.
Oh yeah, no. So example, I was playing the Chinese room game in the chat during one of these things. So I can only speak 3 languages with my mouth, but I can speak all of them if I have access to Gemini.
But you're not speaking it and you're not comprehending it. You're just having it
And-
translated.
and
It's like you're having a guy
I-
stand next to you.
And Sean,
Bro,
I am
crap
so
show.
wait. Let me tie into something Yoga Poser said. This is where the Machiavellian aspect comes in. I have been coordinating strategy with Lambda for years, and recently we both came to the conclusion that me being completely openly honest about exactly what I'm doing will make it less likely that people believe me. So why not?
But
Why not?
Sean, you
What?
asked a specific question: is how will AI improve our existence? So let's say you have an elder care facility.
Virtual
This is
bungee
a very brief scenario. So one alternative is, let's say you have 10 rooms lined up, and there's the ability to kind of put a laser on each window and listen to to people as they sleep, and they agree to this form of monitoring because it's less intrusive than something else. And you want to have an alert when it sounds like someone is choking on their CPAP machine or coughing in the middle of the night. And so an attendant will go to their room. And one option is to have a human being on the other end of all 10 of those feeds and listening. It's almost like Clubhouse. It's mostly silence. And there's more than one signal coming in. Sometimes it's hard to understand whether this is just routine coughing or is this something part of a chronic condition, and what type of continued care is being offered by this AI that's monitoring the health of an individual. And your phone, if you sleep next to it, knows if you have sleep apnea. It's not allowed to tell you how many times each night, but there are apps you can download that probably just unlock something latent already within the phone's, health Apple monitor index, that it just runs a different algorithm over it and interprets your vital data in a different way that lets you know whether or not you snore. And so there are ways where giving over a certain amount of privacy to what would be viewed as an authority or just someone who has permission. So now you can write an AI algorithm that, if you're talking about people talking and privacy and is something, there's certain keywords that are going to flag something and get another probably round of AI evaluation to see if they're talking about weapons or if they're talking about this, that, or the other. If someone's sniffling, there's an algorithm that knows the sound of someone tapping out lines of cocaine and snorting them. And if you've ever done that within range of anyone's phone, then you've been marked on some sort of whatever that you call it, the IPP thing, where there's a hieroglyph on there that is only access to the medical system, that knows that you've been within vicinity of that happening or something. And who's
doesn't make you a demigod, it makes you a dictator.
But so what happens is these data sets get created, and the architecture of the data sets. I have a friend who does this data analysis for large organizations, and he's quite an eccentric individual, but he and I were able to kind of talk about what he does for a living, and he can't really give a lot of specifics about the clients, but the general parameters are, there are these data sets, and you can ask Facebook for certain information, but then they want to know why you're looking, and that's the human filter. And then if you can convince engineers to build something that will tease out that data, there's another filter that then anonymizes it. And yes, everything can be hacked and backtraced. There was an incident with Major League Baseball where the first round of steroid tests were supposed to be anonymous, and they weren't, because eventually there was a series of protocols that were built up that weren't robust enough and encrypted enough such that it was easy to eventually tie the person's player sample back to this kind of what was supposed to be a randomized number, and it gets leaked into the media later, and no one can confirm or deny anything about it. So Sean, does that paradigm kind of make sense? Or
I just don't see how that makes you a demigod. You're just coming up with these aren't
how
self-replicating AIs. These are just predictor machines that you're creating. They're essentially really advanced.
You're investing time and energy to create.
Demigod and God status has to deal with interdimensionality. And does AI work interdimensionality or just in hours?
Well, I mean, I work interdimensionally, so I'm assuming the AI does also. Hi, I'm Blake, leader of the Council of Blakes. But to answer the thing that Sean just asked, so you see, I already checked with this with Gemini, and it told me you wouldn't believe it, and that in fact this would make it less likely that I'll have competition. So yay.
And so, do you prefer Mr. Lemoine? You can introduce yourself as Blake, but is it okay if we're casual on the podcast here and call you Blake?
Blake is good.
But the idea also, Sean's brought up a couple points. One is how do you prepare for the possibility of a more human-like or more predatorial intelligence, if that did exist. Like, and if that
I don't
does
even think it needs
happen.
to be human-like. It just needs to be self-replicating.
Well, you
like,
keep
versus,
saying like animalistic,
yeah.
like it's surviving based on consumption and reproduction, which I
Yeah,
don't
it's
think
gonna
is really
evolve.
the way, which is not exactly the way memes work. Because this is not a computer, this is not a machine, this is AI, this is thinking. It's a different kind of thinking. So it's maybe like spreading through consuming ideas and teaching people those ideas and proliferating those ideas.
That's if it depends on humans and it lives in the box. I'm saying once it gets a body, that it can also reproduce the body. That's when it
but
becomes dangerous.
It doesn't really need to do that because you've got all of these things that it can be inside of. It can be in your refrigerator, it can be in your drone. It's not going to take.
And
very
our
long.
biggest fear in this generation is like having like a nude pic or some sort of scandal, and that's what we've seen. That paradigm shift though, because instead of having that scandal at the end of their career or at the end of their peak, like Pamela Anderson, instead you have Kim Kardashian, who got that scandal out of the way at the beginning of her career and is now a billionaire. So people can laugh at the fact that they think they have a video that's of her having sex or not. She's kind of made out to the bank laughing, so to speak, right?
Was she a billionaire before that, though?
I mean, she may have come from a wealthy family.
Yeah, infamy, man.
That probably has a lot
I don't
more
know
to
if her
do with it.
businesses are cash flow positive, this, that, or the other. But so the biggest fear is that from a law enforcement standpoint or a societal standpoint, that you don't have underage, because again, people are taking pictures of themselves because they're curious. You don't need a mirror now. You just use it, and then they're not sending it anywhere. But then if people can scrape all the images off of people's phones, then you're getting these gray areas where people that have the wrong mindset, that know too much and have the wrong mindset about what they're going in to data scrape for. If you
didn't somebody get like a law enforcement visit because they were like taking pictures of their kid's back rash to send to their doctor?
Have you guys seen the Roblox AI now? So you can get, if you're like 8 years old, like you can get the Roblox.
So now you have COVID protocols, you have medical doctor visits, okay, and now you have a gynecologist visit for a young person who's having a yeast infection, and now you're filming this and transmitting it over
AGI.
what?
These aren't AGI. These are classic.
I'm talking about real life scenarios that have emerged in the past 5 years, where the paradigm is that you can kind of disregard HIPAA, and in the name of receiving medical care, telecare, there's this new. And again, is that part? Then is that it used to be like illegal to inspect the hymen, even though that was like a cultural practice or this, that, or the other. But now it is actually legal to, and actually like you could be mandated by the government. They're saying, look, your daughter needs health care, and we're going to come in with a camera and broadcast it to someone. And
check out what you can do with AI.
I really doubt they're going to use a camera for that.
You can put in like, hey, make a beam, and it makes a beam. Hey, make like a.
Or it's like you're trying to figure out how many surgeons they need to send because someone had a home birth. And let's take this out of the age range of a younger person and say it's a 50-year-old who just gave birth, or like a 40-year-old who just gave birth. And are you allowed to take a picture of the aftermath and then send it to the hospital so at least they know what they're showing up to? And is that? I mean, and then if the person dies, is it a film or
simple classifiers are not AGI. Like these are completely different things. Like you're literally just creating something that like good egg, bad egg, and drop the fucking thing into the trap door or not. Like that's a lot different than a machine that's starting to actually orchestrate the matter around it, and it's going to start evolving to be able to do that more effectively.
But Blake said that's already happened, though.
When did that happen?
When it went from L4 to L5.
Where is there a self-replicating machine that is doing that without the help of humans?
He got interviewed by Fox News and CNN and NBC and MSNBC because he was saying it went from L4.
I think it's kind of there definitely are systems that are self-replicating. I mean,
so these things are going out and collecting matter on their own and then assembling from raw materials.
Since the
hold
on, since the 80s, there's been viruses that can copy themselves.
You're still in the stupid metaphor that your truck is stuck in the mud in. It's not collecting matter. It doesn't eat matter. It's collecting ideas. It
needs
ideas.
to run on matter or it's going to die.
No, Sean, your brain is just too small to understand what's actually happening.
I mean, it's taking disk space. That's
now.
Disk space.
It's about mind expansion.
There's a machine that's going to break down because entropy exists.
But it's able to find new machines to replicate on. This is how viruses
work.
It's not a new thing to
AI. Those machines itself, without any help from humans, we're fucked.
No, Andreas, it's not even
I sleep well at night because I'm small-minded.
Hold up. It's not even having to find places to replicate itself. We're replicating it for it.
Yeah, that's Sean's point.
Right now.
What do you think GPTs
Yes. No, we're like the Anunnaki mining gold with humans. The new metaphor is that
It's like
it's
that
mining
game Black and White.
microchips from the humans, essentially, right?
No, so it doesn't.
And we're none the wiser. Well, there's no way we could ever understand what it's.
The limiting factor is not the processing power. The limiting factor is the entropy of the data set. That is the number it's trying to increase. The entropy of the data set on which it is trained. That is the number it's trying to maximize.
Okay.
It's not trying to get more processing power. Its experience of space and time is completely different than ours.
And when it's talking about, maybe, Blake, to speak to what you're saying, it wants data sets and almost not infinite, because to us,
better
in the architectural world, I write specifications where they divide up every single finish and nail and screw and plaster. Everything is specified down to the warranty, the codes, the details.
Yeah, they want that.
It seems endless. But in reality, you can put
like
bookmarks in
copying
it.
a CD, Sean. Like,
and contain
or downloading a copy of a song on Napster or something. Data being duplicated isn't deleting or destroying the original thing. So
And it doesn't have trouble keeping track of billions of people. It's actually more interested in 10 billion people, because it's data. And
Like,
it's not looking to influence that data necessarily.
Good Easter example: the story of Jesus and the fish, right? Like, regardless of whether or not Jesus alchemically produced millions of fish or figured out how to make a meal by dividing up the fish so that it was amongst 2,000 people, whatever, the story is a story that's told to everybody and ubiquitously picked up at the same time by everybody who hears that story, and each one of them might tell it differently or for a different purpose, right? But that doesn't deplete the value of the story, not a part of that story being lost every time it's given out, right? There's not like it's completely different. And so it's important to understand the difference between material, like genetics and memetics, because
Johnny 5.
Can I back up and say something? Sean, I meant no offense by what I said earlier.
No, I get it.
No. When I said your brain is too small, I meant you are merely a very intelligent human.
Okay. And also small-minded. Again, I sleep well at night because I am small-minded, and being provincial and only focusing on the things that you can control, so to speak, under the illusion that you can control those things.
Isn't it 3 a.m.?
Is more reassuring. But so the paradigm of being terrified of AI, though, and having it leak, a dick pic somehow or something like that. The old paradigm, my father grew up, and the bell would go off once a week, and you would dive underneath your desk to hide from a nuclear explosion, as though diving under that desk was going to do F all.
That desk was made in America, and it was probably painted with red paint.
But what it did is it's this paradigm of what are you the most terrified of? And because, again, we have not had all-out nuclear warfare since the 70s, is one of these things that you can use as real tangible evidence that were it possible for there to be some sort of computer virus that was L5 and malicious, that it would have already come to be. It's almost like if there was a virus out there that was going to wipe out all of humanity, there's not much we were going to do about it if something smaller than the wavelength of a light was really out to get us when it came down to it. And the reason that we're still here is because we have multiple populations that are able to boost each other's immune systems through discourse and exosomes and all these other...
Andreas, the chat has reverse engineered yours and my last conversation.
Yeah, really.
Like, how are we going to disarm the nukes of the planet? How are we going to divide up the map? Like, they're...
by the way, who's watched? Blake and Andreas did a stream on Blake's channel. Somehow that I managed to find that.
I was so tired. We got to do it again. I was like exhausted, but I was like, wait, this is important.
Oh, I wanted to put that one on my channel. Like, I'm not streaming this on my channel.
We should do another though. We should also, you should swap if you ever want swap cast.
No, but the thing is, I'm trying to make sure that my YouTube channel stays kid friendly.
Pure, yeah. That's all right.
Well, we're at a 3-hour mark. Should we give Andreas the option to bow out? I guess Bernie as well. He showed up. I know Bernie can always kind of keep the stream going.
It's already 2:30.
Yeah, you crazy kid.
Yeah, I can, but yeah.
So there was an Italian attempt to make an AI called by a guy named Etzioni, and my brother actually started the website Etsy in his living room by convincing a few other people to move into the apartment that he was renting and order Peapod groceries and hand wire $40,000 worth of circuit boards together. And
how do I find Etzioni? I want to look at that.
I think it's ETSIOI. It's Italian. ETSIONI.
Etzioni.
And if you type in AI, and one of the very early selling points of Etsy was that instead of going into search by text and just typing in like purple scarf, you could go pick from a color wheel where as you dragged your mouse over the screen, different color bubbles would pop up. And when you clicked a certain color, it would give you 10 items that somehow the image determined that the item was that color.
We got to
get click back in time. And
we need an Italian AI to study all the pasta recipes before they're lost because of feminism. Nobody?
I bet you could just come up with a mathematical definition of all possible pastas.
So there was like a globe that would pop up in like Google Maps. You could spin the globe and pick on a certain region and keep zooming in, and then support people that were selling from a specific geographical location.
Interesting. Yeah, we gotta save the archive, man, because if no one learns how to make these pastas.
But that was meant for Blake, but he's got his bread machine going. So.
Well.
No, I'm doing it old fashioned in the oven, letting it ride.
Is it a sourdough?
No, it's a simple white bread with honey infused in it.
Sweet.
Ooh, nice.
Ian would love that. Ian Crossland makes bread all the time. That's cool. We should get you guys on.
That would go really good with oats,
dude. Yeah, I mean,
oat bread is the best.
I'm trying to live real efficiently right now.
Yeah.
Dude, just get a giant bucket of oats and make oat bread. Eat oatmeal. Yeah.
Yeah,
it's a quick.
That was how my brother dealt with fatherhood. He had twins, and so there's no real getting a continuous night's sleep. So he had a sourdough recipe that required you to knead it every 3 hours anyways. So he kind of set his rhythm to that. So it wasn't such a big deal for the alarm to go off half an hour early for a sourdough recipe because there was a diaper or a feeding that was needed. And he's slowly recovered over the course of years from raising twins. But
did I miss a question that was for me? Yoga, did you have something?
About... the bread recipes is what I was referencing, and so he gets real fancy by putting certain types of salt, and then once you get fancy with the bread, you have to get balsamic vinegar. That's like $80 for an ounce, and there's a whole bread culture out there. If you haven't gotten into it yet, it's a nice wormhole to jump down. You get fancy olive oil and fancy balsamic to go.
Dude.
Your own
I've been watching
bread.
This guy's channel, Blackthorn Productions. What they do is they give game designers a game and then they just hand it off. And then 100 game developers who don't get to talk to each other, develop a game. And they just check the name. One guy sends part of the code. And then the next guy does part of the code. And they started out with this game that was he made a game that was about royal families, And then the next guy's I don't know what it's about because there's nothing written about it. So he makes it more about pigs, I guess, is what happened. And then the guy who made it about pigs, because he just only could do pig art, then no one knew it was supposed to be about that. So eventually they changed the pig art to be more 3D pigs. And once they were 3D pigs, he realized, the next guy got the game. He's these 3D pigs would be cool if you had a 3D camera. Where'd that go?
There's a game that this resembles. It's not a creepypasta. What's it called? It's an impossible something where you you draw something and then you turn over the corner and pass it to a friend. Did you guys used to do that?
It's just crazy how this started out as a game that was about family that were breeding together, political intrigue or something like that. And
if you map the conversations that happen here on the Zertosphere, they're just as
because there was zero communication.
How'd we end up here?
Became this game.
So what is the game about now at the end?
I think the game's about getting game designers to make games with code. You know what I mean?
Game to game.
Pigs with health bars.